Chapter 343. Violent Fluctuations. What exactly happened? Boom. At this moment, all living beings in the outside world were frightened by the noise made by the Heritage Temple. I saw that the starry sky was already covered with flames, a red cloud, as spectacular as a sunset glow. Some people even saw a faint glimpse of the majestic figure of a real phoenix among them. At this moment, the Temple of Inheritance was still erupting with terrifying power. Just a little bit of the aura that leaked out was enough to shatter the stars in all directions and suffocate all living beings. Even the Star Messenger's eyelids twitched, and he was terrified after seeing this scene. He knew that the flame that was almost blazing was transformed by Qi Yao, but he didn't expect that that being would actually clash with others inside. It seems that the opponent's strength is definitely not low. He is very likely an immortal king. At this moment, even if the people from the 10 domains present were slow-witted, they could all react and realize that something had happened in the Heritage Temple since the human girl entered. What exactly happened? Why is there such a horrific aftermath of the battle? A strong man in the 10 realms asked in a trembling voice, his face extremely pale. The mere aftermath of the battle was enough to make the pupils of the saints present shrink slightly and their faces filled with fear. They had a vague suspicion in their hearts that a great battle must have taken place between supreme powers in the Inheritance Temple. Everyone looked at the Star Messenger with confusion, wanting to get an answer from him. However, the Star Envoy calmly shook his head and said, "It's just a normal emergency situation from the past. There's no need to panic. Nothing has happened in the palace, and all the traditions will continue." He comforted everyone, and then quickly told Ji Feng what had happened. A hint of tension flashed in the depths of his eyes. A battle of that level is not something that someone like him can handle, so he needs to call an adult over quickly. But soon, the Star Messenger seemed to hear some response, and the tension in his eyes disappeared. And after hearing the Star Envoy's answer, the people in the 10 realms were completely relieved, as if the Star Envoy was their tranquilizer. Even the adults looked calm and fearless. So what were they afraid of? In the sky, Nangong Chen stared at the direction of the Heritage Temple, his pupils burning, and his hands clenched involuntarily. How could this be a simple emergency? The intense battle fluctuations clearly showed that two supremely powerful beings were battling each other. And just now, he saw a flash of red cloud rushing into the temple. Even though it was only for a moment, it was still captured by his double pupils. Could it be related to that red cloud? The battle only broke out after that red cloud entered. Nangong Chen frowned slightly, thinking, that red cloud. He always felt that it looked familiar. If he remembered correctly, when Su Li was in danger in the 9 Heaven secret realm that day, a red cloud also appeared, and he had to go to rescue her. Call. Nangong Chen took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, his eyes flashing with a chilling coldness. Now it seems that there's a high probability that Su Li is in danger again, and that red light is going to save Su Li. What exactly happened in the Temple of Inheritance? Who did Su Li have a conflict with? He didn't know all this, and there was no need for him to know, but he knew that Su Li was his woman, and he would kill anyone who touched her. Even if he is an immortal, one has to ask whether his sword is sharp. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen no longer sat there waiting to die, and sent a divine thought to the Star Messenger. I'm going into the Heritage Temple. Su Li is in danger. After hearing this, the Star Envoy was stunned. He didn't expect that this kid knew all this, but he did not hide it. His tone was somewhat relaxed. He smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I can't let you in, but I can tell you one piece of news. She was in danger, but she's fine now. I assure you of that. You don't have to worry." Having said that, he couldn't help but look at the diminishing residual power emanating from the Heritage Temple, and thought to himself that it was almost over. Nangong Chen was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that Su Li was really in danger. With Su Li's personality, she would definitely not have a conflict with the other party. If she could have a conflict, it must be because the other party was too aggressive. However, after hearing the second half of the Star Envoy's sentence, Nangong Chen calmed down and felt relieved. Fortunately, the other party was honest. Otherwise, he would have put on the robe of the leader of Xianxian's sect and forced his way in. At this moment, in the battlefield between heaven and earth, Li Qixin and others also found something wrong and felt inexplicably nervous. They did not believe the words of the Star Envoy. They had clearly seen with their own eyes that the battle broke out after Goddess Su entered. It was obvious that there must be something they did not know about in the Temple of Inheritance. However, a battle of that level is beyond their current strength to participate in. All they can do is keep hoping that Goddess Su can return safely. On the other side, Hu Yaoyao also frowned, looking at the red clouds, muttering to herself, "My dear rival, please don't die in there." Tianyuan, Divine Dynasty. At this moment, there was silence in the court. Everyone present was looking at the Inheritance Temple, feeling extremely uneasy. Even Nangong Chen stood up, his eyes full of worry. Su Li was the most satisfying daughter-in-law in his Tianyuan family, so he must not let anything happen to her. If something really happens, I'm afraid that kid won't be able to bear it. Su Ming was so nervous that his palms were sweating. He kept praying in his heart and walked back and forth in the hall. Not only them, but others as well, including the people of the Divine Dynasty, are like this. Goddess Su is one of their two most outstanding talents, and she is also the wife of the current crown prince. In the future, she will most likely be the empress of this Divine Dynasty. They could never imagine such an amazing existence. If something really happened, how great the loss would be to the entire Divine Dynasty. Even if there are thousands or even millions of years, I am afraid that such a monster cannot be born. Just as they were silent, an excited voice suddenly came from the crowd. She's back. Goddess Su is back. Everyone was shocked and then looked up. Suddenly, the gate of the Inheritance Temple opened, and an ice-blue figure slowly walked out of it, still as beautiful as ever. There was not even a single injury on his body, and it was obvious that he was fine and everything was as normal as before. This time, Su Li stayed in the Temple of Inheritance much longer than other geniuses, a full hour, but strangely, the stars did not light up. But even so, no one blamed each other. After all, who knew that such a situation would suddenly happen in the Heritage Temple? Being able to come back alive was already the greatest joy. Why ask for more? Chapter 344. Hopes rely on those with double pupils. In the palace, the gray-haired old men present breathed a sigh of relief after seeing Su Li finally come out safely, which was enough to show how nervous they were just now. Nangong Chen and Su Li, these are the lifeblood of their Divine Dynasty, and no loss is allowed. However, someone soon discovered that Su Li did not seem to have inherited the true immortal heritage. With Goddess Su's aptitude, how could she not receive the true immortal inheritance? You know, she's ranked second on the Myriad Realms ranking. There's definitely something fishy about this Heritage Temple. No matter what that crappy inheritance is, as long as he comes back alive, that scene just now really scared us old guys. Civil and military officials all offered their comfort and looked at Su Ming, whose face was a little pale. Su Ming could never have imagined that his daughter, with such talent, might not have the inheritance of a true immortal. However, if he knew that Su Li already had the inheritance of an immortal king, and that it was the inheritance of the most powerful immortal king, he would probably be so shocked that he would be speechless. Nangong Chen also spoke to comfort him. Prime Minister Su, there's no need to be so disappointed. You saw the scene just now. I'm afraid there's something else going on. I've seen the child's excellence and hard work. It's absolutely impossible that he doesn't have the potential to become an immortal. Maybe my brat won't be able to get the inheritance when he goes up later, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you can become an immortal if you get the inheritance, and you can't become an immortal if you don't get the inheritance. Su Ming's expression brightened slightly upon hearing this, and he then revealed a wry smile. Your Majesty, you are joking. With the Crown Prince's talent, how could he possibly not obtain the true immortal inheritance? Alas, things are not so absolute. Nangong Chen waved his hand and said indifferently, on the battlefield of heaven and earth. After seeing that Su Li did not get the inheritance, some races that had originally been pessimistic about the human race showed some gloating looks. For a moment, even the powerful God Clan leader breathed a sigh of relief, and his expression returned to its usual indifference. After staying here for so long, I thought this girl would inherit something, but in the end, not even a ripple was heard. Wow, this is the top genius of the human race. It is really sad to be born in the human race. As for those races that had previously had grudges against the Xiantian territory, they were now trying hard to suppress their laughter, their eyes looking very frivolous. Second on a Myriad Worlds ranking, is this the strength? He doesn't even have a 1-star inheritance. Looking at her like that, someone who didn't know her would think she had obtained a 9-star inheritance. But you told me she has nothing at all, ah ha 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 ha. The human race has truly fallen. All the geniuses who have entered so far haven't received a single inheritance. I think that brat won't get the inheritance today. Ha. He's so arrogant. Now he's behaved. These races whispered to each other, their eyes full of mockery. Even the Demon King, who had been optimistic about the human race before, shook his head in disappointment after seeing this scene, and sighed that the human race had really declined. As for the Lane Arhut in the Buddha realm, he remained silent, looking at the scene indifferently without much reaction, and a hint of disappointment flashed in the depths of his eyes. I didn't expect that what that old dog from the God Clan said was right. These humans are really a bunch of trash, all good-looking but useless. If these 6 places were given to their Buddha realm, at least a few people with the qualifications of true immortals would appear. In Xiantian territory, everyone felt powerless and hopeless after seeing this result. They were even indifferent to the mocking looks coming their way, and their faces were stunned. Goddess Su is already considered one of the top geniuses in their Tianyuan domain. Her incredible talent has amazed countless people, but still can't do it. Even Goddess Su can't obtain the true immortal inheritance. 6 geniuses from their Tianyuan realm have entered, but none of them have obtained a single inheritance. Thinking of this, they all looked a little ashamed, and even a sense of inferiority emerged deep in their hearts. Is it really as people from other domains say, that the human race is not tolerated by heaven and earth, and is inherently inferior to all other races in the heavens? They had never dared to believe this view before, but after seeing the Inheritance Temple today, their faith in Taoism was somewhat shaken. At this moment, the powerful men in the void frowned slightly when they saw this scene. They did not expect that the failure of Goddess Su would have such a huge blow to the entire Tianyuan realm. This is not a good thing. It is extremely important for the next generation of geniuses and the future of the human race. This concerns the future of the entire Tianyuan realm. What should I do now? I can't believe that even Goddess Su can't do it. The Heritage Temple is really blind. Wang Qi from the Wang family gritted his teeth. Although his son is not good enough, the Goddess Su is indeed strong. It can be seen from the second round of battle that she is worthy of the title of monster. But is it impossible to do this? If this continues, I'm afraid no one will stand up, and the next generation of Tianjiao will be unstable in their Dao heart. The beautiful woman from the Holy Land of Astronomy shook her head and said seriously, glancing at the distraught expressions of the younger generation in Chu City. And just at this moment, a hearty laugh was heard. It's okay. We still have the kid with double pupils. Ning Rong, stop worrying about it. Li Songhai's figure quietly appeared in the void and spoke to the beautiful woman with confidence in his eyes. But Goddess Su hasn't come yet. What if he also? Ning Rong still looked a little unconfident when she heard this, and her tone was hesitant, as if she had thought of some bad consequences, but in the end she didn't say it. There's no such thing as an emergency. The head of Tianbao Pavilion also spoke, with a big belly and a big smile. He saw that his extremely cautious boy chose to believe in the other party, which meant that the other party could really create miracles. Yes, he can do it, believe him. At this moment, the old sect leader also spoke slowly, his eyes full of confidence. Even Zhao Lei, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up. Those with double pupils will definitely receive the inheritance. Have you forgotten the immortal posture of the previous number 1 on the Myriad Realms ranking? Besides, there must be something fishy about the Su goddess. She is also ranked 2nd on the Myriad Realms ranking and definitely has the potential to become an immortal. Yet, she caused such a big commotion in the Heritage Temple and stayed there longer than those who previously received the inheritance. Have you forgotten the rules that the Star Envoy mentioned at the beginning? If you don't receive the inheritance within an incense stick, you will be expelled directly. And that Goddess Su, although she didn't receive the inheritance, stayed in the Inheritance Temple for a full hour without being expelled. After hearing these words, everyone present suddenly understood. Yes, why didn't they think that the time that Goddess Su stayed in there was even longer than those 2 who received the inheritance? So, someone is secretly targeting our human race's genius. Ning Rong said somewhat bewilderedly. I don't know. I'm afraid only that person knows all this. Zhao Lei shook his head and looked at the star messenger in the void. The main reason why he could become the Holy Lord of the Heavenly Sword Holy Land, in addition to his powerful strength, was his ability to see through the origin. In short, it was Goddess Su who encountered an accident, which caused the inheritance to be delayed. If someone with double pupils had gone in, and if there were no accidents, they would definitely be able to obtain the inheritance. Li Songhai also understood and summarized. So now, whether or not the human race can regain their confidence depends on the one with the double pupil. Wang Qi also spoke, his eyes burning. Chapter 345, The Taunting of Several Domains. And on the battlefield of heaven and earth. At this moment, Li Qixin, Wang Teng, Chao Li, and others were shocked when they saw that Su Li did not get the true immortal inheritance, and they were silent. Even Goddess Su can't do it? They dared not imagine how extraordinary the qualifications required for this so-called true immortal inheritance would be. Xian Xiangling and Hu Yaoyao, who inherited the true immortal's legacy, although they were both genuine monsters in other domains, their aptitude was not ridiculously strong. As for Goddess Su and the man with double pupils, they were the most powerful geniuses they had ever seen. Their talents were so amazing that even their peers would be astonished. These 2 are truly outrageous. Could it be that the Heritage Temple made a mistake? After all, there was such a big commotion inside just now. There must be a 1-star heritage, right? Lu Daju whispered, glancing at the magnificent ancient palace. I also think there must be something fishy going on. And look at Goddess Su's expression. She doesn't look disappointed at all for not being able to obtain the inheritance. Xiong Dia added, stealing a glance at Su Li, who looked extremely calm. Everyone looked over and found that it was just as Xiong had said. There was no trace of sadness on the face of the goddess Su, but it was also impossible to tell what she was thinking. Only when the other party set her eyes on the figure in the sky would some ripples appear in her beautiful eyes. Seeing this, everyone withdrew their gazes and shook their heads. They couldn't make out anything at all. But what is certain is that something extraordinary must have happened in the Temple of Inheritance just now. Alas, next it's Brother Nangong's turn. I wonder if he can get the inheritance. Li Qixin was silent for a while, looking towards the throne in the sky and muttering. After hearing this, the others pursed their lips and did not answer. If it were before, they might have thought that with the other party's qualifications, he would definitely be able to obtain the inheritance, but who knew that this would happen now? Even someone as talented as Su Xin couldn't get it. So, if something unexpected happens next, can someone with double pupils get it? It's hard to say. All of this is uncertain. In the distance, Hu Yaoyao took in their expressions and chuckled softly on her charming face. Even you don't believe that the master can obtain the inheritance. How can anyone else in the world believe it? It's terrifying that only a little girl like me would feel sorry for you, sir. I wonder when you will understand my feelings. After saying that, she looked at Nangong Chen again and licked her lips. As for the genius of the God clan, when Xianhong learned that the human girl did not get the inheritance, he was also shocked. As the opponent's previous opponent, no one knew the girl's potential better than her. To be honest, she was even better than their son of God. Xiannu's words were similar. But even with such talent, he couldn't even obtain the inheritance. The Heritage Temple must be too harsh on the human race. Xianhong thought about it in his heart, and then shook his head with some regret. Xian Xiangling's face remained calm. To her, if she couldn't obtain the inheritance, she wouldn't be able to become an immortal. Such a person was not worthy of being considered an opponent. Now it seems that she only has one opponent, and she doesn't know whether the other party can get the inheritance. If you can't get it, don't blame yourself for looking down on it. Thinking of this, she glanced at Nangong Chen in heaven. And when the Buddhist disciple learned that even the second place on the myriad worlds list could not obtain the inheritance, his face showed ecstasy and he laughed with schadenfreude. If he knew that Su Li already had the immortal king inheritance, who knows what he would think? Just when these geniuses were having different thoughts, Xingqian spoke and announced the last spot to enter the Heritage Temple today. The last one is Nangong Chen from Xintian territory. As soon as he finished speaking, countless eyes focused on the snow-clad figure on the throne. Nangong Chen withdrew the spiritual thoughts that he had just communicated with Su Li, stood up with some satisfaction in his eyes, stepped on the void, and walked towards the temple. He learned from Su Li that something had indeed happened in the Inheritance Temple just now. She had a conflict with a powerful man, and then the conflict was resolved by other kind-hearted powerful people. And she also obtained the inheritance above the immortal king, so she did not gain nothing. As for why the Inheritance Temple was not lit, it was because he asked the Star Envoy to conceal it. Although these remarks were obviously fabricated, Nangong Chen did not care. There were no such things as kind-hearted strong people. Everyone had their own secrets. He is one himself, so why can't Su Li have one too? It's good that he came back alive. Moreover, he also obtained the inheritance of a mortal king or above. TSK, 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 TSK. If the 10 realms saw this, they would be shocked to death. At least he must be above 5 stars. It turns out that the destined heroine is different. She is really patient. If it were him, he would have made a big show of it for everyone to see. While he was thinking, he had already arrived at the gate of the Temple of Heritage. Looking at the ancient bronze door, Nangong Chen stretched out his hands, slowly pushed it open, and then disappeared from everyone's sight. After seeing Nangong Chen finally enter, some dissatisfied creatures in the 9 realms suddenly felt the pressure dissipate and then began to vent their dissatisfaction. After waiting for a whole day, it's finally this kid's turn. I want to see what kind of inheritance he can get. Creatures from other domains whispered, their eyes full of sarcasm. Soon, those creatures who were not optimistic about Nangong Chen, with cold eyes, echoed, yes, arrogance without corresponding strength will come at a price. Although the title of number 1 on the Myriad Worlds ranking is indeed impressive, if you don't get the inheritance after entering, there are only 2 words to describe it. Haha. Even those ranked lower than him can get it. If he can't get it, he can really find a wall to bang his head against. Don't tell me. The probability of him not getting the inheritance is quite high. Wasn't that human just now ranked 2nd on the Myriad Worlds ranking, and he still couldn't get the inheritance? There's nothing we can do about it. This is fate. Who told him to be born into the human race? Ha ha ha. After today, the rumor that the human race has been abandoned by heaven and earth will be completely confirmed. None of the 7 human geniuses have obtained the inheritance. If I were a human, I would feel ashamed. I might as well find a place to bury myself. How pitiful. Hearing these words, full of pity and disdain, the cultivators in Tianyuan realm clenched their fists. They looked at those domains coldly, their eyes burning with anger. Which domain can tolerate such humiliating words? Immediately, many young and energetic human geniuses pointed at those people and cursed them. If we can't get the inheritance, then we can't get the inheritance. So what? We humans worked so hard to get it, and even if we can't get it, we won't give it to you bastards. You'll be so angry. The young man wearing a pig head mask said in a mean way. Yes, even if we let a dog go to the heritage temple, we won't give it to you villains from these few domains. If that person with double pupils didn't get in, would you dare to be so arrogant? Qing Fan echoed in the crowd. Chapter 346. Su Li's domineering move. Nangong Chen enters the heritage temple. After hearing their words, the faces of the few domains that had spoken earlier instantly turned dark. They wouldn't even be given to a dog. Fine, fine. I didn't expect that this young brat from Xintian territory would humiliate them like this. He must be tired of living. Just when they were about to say something, a chill suddenly hit them. What's this? Just now, a young man from the evil realm looked at the cold snow flying all over the sky and said in a lost voice, his eyes full of shock. The next moment, the snowflakes fluttered and instantly froze the few people who had spoken the most arrogantly into ice sculptures, wiping out their life force. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Looking to the end of the flying snow, they saw the woman who looked like a god in the snow. She was obviously extremely beautiful, but she acted so cruelly and decisively, not leaving the other party any chance of survival. No matter how pretty her face was, in the eyes of these people in the evil realm, she was as terrifying as a devil. That's right, the person who just took action was Su Li. Seeing that they finally fell silent, Su Li gently flicked her hand and took back the frost, as if nothing had happened. She continued to look at the heritage temple with a calm face. Seeing this, the powerful person from the evil realm trembled with anger. Did the people from the mysterious sky realm just kill several of his evil realm's geniuses so easily? My lord, this woman is so vicious that she attacked the younger generation of our evil domain without any warning. She is simply a killer. I hope you can punish her severely and revoke her ranking on the Myriad Realms ranking. Let me deal with her in my evil domain. One of the tall and powerful men from the evil realm bowed and said to the Star Envoy with gritted teeth. Although they were very angry, they were not stupid. Without the order of the Star Messenger, who would dare to attack the human girl? After hearing this, the Star Envoy said calmly, Really? Did she really kill him? Absolutely true. The strong man from the evil realm nodded excitedly, and then pushed forward the geniuses who had already turned into ice sculptures. If we used the lives of these people to exchange for that human monster, it would be a huge profit. The Star Envoy continued to nod, looked at Su Li, and said, Did you kill these people? Under the gaze of everyone, Su Li shook his head and said softly, I didn't kill him. From the beginning to the end, I was on the battlefield of heaven and earth. After he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. No one had expected that Su Li would lie under the nose of Xingchen. Thinking of this, some people shook their heads secretly, thinking that this woman might be in trouble. However, the Star Envoy only nodded after hearing this, his eyes gradually turning cold, and he scolded the powerful evil realm expert. Did you hear that? It wasn't her who did it. She's been in the battlefield the whole time. If I hear you slandering the Xianzong Tianjiao again, I'll blame you for being rude. When these words were spoken, all creatures in the 9 realms were shocked. They had never expected that the iron-faced and impartial Star Envoy would actually say such words. After hearing this, the strong man from the evil realm knelt on the ground in fear. No matter how stupid he was at this moment, he understood that the Star Envoy was completely on the side of the human genius. He said in a trembling voice, I know, she didn't kill him. I must have seen it wrong. Well, it's good that you admit your mistakes. The Star Envoy nodded slightly, then turned back. At this moment, after this incident happened, those races that had just slandered the human race could not help but behave themselves a lot and stood there honestly. But from their eyes, it could be seen that they are not yet convinced. As for Xian Tianyu and others, after seeing those people being dealt with by Goddess Su, they also cheered and felt very relieved. In the Temple of Heritage, thanks to his double pupils, Nangong Chen had no pressure in navigating the pitch-black avenue and soon saw the interior of a magnificent hall. I didn't expect this place to be so ancient. After reaching out to brush off the spider webs on his body, Nangong Chen looked at the extremely dilapidated hall and sighed. There were many stars floating in the air, but no human figure was seen. Just as Nangong Chen was wandering around, a surprised voice rang out. The number 1 in this immortal treasure is actually a human. I saw a starlight twinkling in the sky, and then it turned into the figure of a black phoenix, looking at Nangong Chen curiously. This black phoenix was the one that had extended an olive branch to Suli before. As soon as the words fell, many voices gradually sounded. What? He's not the genius of our god clan. Something's wrong. Wasn't he from our god clan in the last class? This is truly a rare event that only happens once in 1,000 years. It must have been quite a while since the last human race was number 1 in the immortal treasures. Great. Finally, it's not those races anymore. I'm tired of seeing them. Now that I see it this way, the human race this time is really not bad. They're actually the first and second place. Not only that, but even among the top 10, there are 7 of them. I thought we had returned to ancient times. Go and call those humans quickly. After what happened just now, I dare not covet the human geniuses in the slightest. It's better for our own geniuses to stay quiet. Yes, go call Lao Yu quickly. He should be almost recovered from his injuries. At this moment, the surrounding star souls were all lit up, and one after another, the souls of true immortals emerged from them, pointing at Nangong Chen. Nangong Chen was a little confused when he heard this, but he still silently digested what they said. It turns out that the human race hasn't entered the first place of Xinzong for so long. No wonder they were so surprised when they saw me. But the last 2 sentences that person said, what happened just now, wasn't it exactly what happened after Suli came in? Or is it that our own genius is well-behaved? Why would he say such a thing? What exactly happened just now? And who was that old you? Why was he recovering from his injuries? Could it be that he was the one who had just fought? Just as Nangong Chen was thinking, he heard a cry of surprise from the void. Fuck, it really is from our human race. In the starry sky, an armored figure appeared, his stern face full of shock, and next to him was the figure of a short old man. Obviously, the one who exclaimed was the immortal general above. Old Yu was also shocked, but soon recovered. He looked into the young man's eyes, as if he had thought of something. His pupil shrank, and he said in a lost voice, Double Pupils. It's actually Double Pupils. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present noticed the young man's terrifying eyes covered with runes, and their minds turned pale. As if hearing this exclamation, even the depths of the starry sky were filled with shining stars, and countless ancient and terrifying auras rose into the sky. Just because of the sound of Double Pupils, the immortal kings of all generations of human race were awakened. Chapter 347. Immortal Kings Fight. Double Pupil Girl appears, 2 in 1, for 1,000 words. After feeling the overwhelming pressure, the true immortals present turned their heads to look. After seeing the scene before them, even those as powerful as the true immortals were speechless. That restricted area, there are so many immortal kings? Who is it that said there were only a few immortal kings there? They will all be resurrected today. The souls of the deceased immortals were speechless. No one expected that just because of the boys' double pupils, so many ancient beings in the restricted area were alarmed. Those people are the oldest and most powerful beings among the 3,000 Dao states. Old Yu and the immortal General Shangfang were both extremely excited at this moment. They had never seen so many immortal kings in the human race. If they were not mistaken, there were actually more than 10 immortal kings. One immortal king is enough to suppress the true immortals here. What does it mean to have more than 10 immortal kings? There would be no problem in sinking the entire 3,000 Daozhou. At this moment, when Lao Yu and Shangfang Xianjiang looked at Nangong Chen again, their eyes had changed a little, and it was a kind of relief. With double pupils and the inheritance of the immortal king, the other party's future achievements will definitely be higher than they imagined. It seems that the human race in this world is finally going to rise. As expected, he knew that only an inheritance above the immortal king level could be worthy of the legendary double pupils. Seeing that the immortal kings had not recovered so quickly, Lao Yu hurried to Nangong Chen, told him the rules of this place, and helped him solve some of his doubts. After a few breaths, Nangong Chen's face showed a look of realization, and his eyes gradually became clear. These people are actually the souls of true immortals, and they're all passed down one by one. In the Inheritance Temple, there are special treasures that can preserve their souls. This is why they can live here for so long. In the Inheritance Temple, there are 2 areas. One side is here, which is the inheritance of the true immortals. To the outside world, it is also the inheritance below the 5 stars. In the distant starry sky of this entire true immortal area is the inheritance of the immortal king. However, according to Lao Yu, ordinary geniuses are not qualified to obtain the inheritance of the immortal king, and the best they can get is the inheritance of a true immortal. This is also why they were so surprised after seeing so many immortal kings revive. As for how to obtain the inheritance, this is even simpler and more direct. You only need to show your talent in the Inheritance Temple. If someone takes a fancy to it, the inheritance will awaken. You just need to choose the inheritance that suits you. Of course, in addition to your own race, you can also choose other races as long as they are suitable. This is why the Heritage Temple accommodates the strong from all races in the heavens to come here and leave their inheritance. In addition, Nangong Chen also asked what had happened just now, but Old Yu's face changed after hearing that, and he stopped talking. The immortal General Shangfang on the side secretly told him some news. It was said that a female genius from the human race had just come over, and after showing her talent, she awakened 3 immortal kings, one of whom was from the human race. It was originally an exciting thing, but no one expected that the human immortal king would deliberately make things difficult for the human genius because he had a feud with someone with a similar physique during his lifetime. Lao Yu spoke up for the genius and was almost beaten to death by the immortal king. If the girl's backer had not come to her at the end, her life would have been in danger today. After listening to this, Nangong Chen's eyes gradually turned cold and his hands clenched. He knew that Su Li's personality would not conflict with others. Sure enough, it was that immortal king who was deliberately making things difficult for her. It was hard to believe how helpless Su Li was when he faced the might of the immortal king alone. Even the true immortal who spoke for him was almost beaten to death by the immortal king. The immortal general above did not notice Nangong Chen's emotions and sighed with a look of regret. Anyway, that's all. Sigh. I don't know what the immortal king is up to. He even doubts his own genius. Luckily, that girl has someone to back her up. Of course, that patron is also a remarkable figure. He almost beat the immortal king who bullied the girl to death. It was quite satisfying to watch. In the end, he even healed my old friend's injuries. It's funny though, that girl clearly has an inheritance, yet she still comes to this inheritance temple. TSK, 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 I'm old, and I can't keep up with the thinking of your generation. At this point, the immortal general shook his head in an air of seniority. Nangong Chen listened silently until the other party finished speaking. Then he asked, "May I ask, immortal general, what is the name of that immortal king?" After he finished speaking, the immortal general above was a little surprised and looked at him. "Why are you asking this?" Nangong Chen remained silent. Seeing this, the immortal General Shangfang pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said, "Never mind. This isn't something that can't be told. After all the true immortals here know that the immortal king's name is Fa Wu. Although that immortal king was nearly destroyed by the girl's backers, he was still a remnant immortal king. If you're not a true immortal, you still cannot fight him." His words had a reminder tone. Obviously, he noticed that the young man in front of him seemed to have some relationship with the girl. The immortal king of Dharma. Nangong Chen silently recited these 4 words in his heart, firmly memorizing them, and then bowed with a calm look. "Thank you for the information, immortal general. If you need me in any way in the future, please let me know." The immortal General Shangfang smiled and didn't care. "It's a small matter. All the true immortals here know about these things. With your talent, anyone you ask will tell you. After all, with the boy's current strength, what can he do to help him?" But what he didn't know was that it was these insignificant words from the young man today that would allow him to live a new life in the future. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen shook his head and said nothing more. If it were a true immortal from another race, they wouldn't say so much to him sincerely, let alone remind themselves. Others may not mind this favor, but you must not forget it. Then he looked at the old man who had been eavesdropping nearby, and a hint of gratitude also appeared in his eyes, but he didn't say much. Soon, more than a dozen extremely powerful figures appeared in the sky, covering the entire starry sky. Their eyes were calm as they looked down at the entire hall, as if searching for something. Soon, they fixed their eyes on Nangong Chen. "He really has double pupils." Among them, a petite immortal king murmured with a somewhat shocked tone. When the true immortals present saw this scene, their pupils shrank slightly, and they said respectfully in unison, "We have met the immortal kings." After hearing this, these immortal kings nodded slightly in response, their eyes still focused on the only young man in the audience. The immortal king who had spoken earlier walked out of the light curtain, allowing everyone to see her face clearly. She had a face like a little girl, with fair skin and round eyes, and was very crystal clear and cute. Despite his childish appearance, no one present dared to look down on him. Instead, they were even more awed by him. The bone age is quite young, which is strange. It's not that reincarnation. Why would humans be born with double pupils for no reason? The girl talked to herself, but her tone was old-fashioned and didn't match her appearance. After seeing this, the immortal general above calmly sent a message to Nangong Chen. "This person is the Autumn Water Immortal King, the ancestor of the Water Clan. According to what the outside world says, he should be considered a 7-star inheritance, and he should not be underestimated." Nangong Chen also nodded silently, with a flash of shock in his eyes. Unexpectedly, among the immortal kings of the human race, any one of them has a 7-star inheritance. Is this the foundation of the human race? Then another immortal king spoke from the void. Double pupils, not bad. Boy, are you willing to accept my inheritance? Nangong Chen looked up and saw that the person who spoke was the most muscular figure among the ranks of immortal kings. His upper body was naked, revealing his muscles that were as lingering as a dormant dragon. Just standing there, it was like a mountain, giving people a strong sense of oppression. This person is not simple either. Nangong Chen thought to himself, his face a little solemn. He also cultivated his physical body and could feel the terrifying and powerful power beneath those muscles. This senior's name is Tianqi, and he specializes in the cultivation of the physical body. People call him the Tianqi Immortal King, and he also has the 7-star inheritance. The immortal on the side will continue to transmit the message. After hearing this, Nangong Chen's eyes flashed, and he focused on cultivating the physical body. It was just as he thought. Now it seems that none of those who can become immortal kings are simple. Under this tremendous pressure, Nangong Chen took a deep breath, bowed to the Apocalypse Immortal King, and said, "Thank you for your consideration, Senior, but the matter of choosing inheritance is extremely important. Please give me some consideration." As soon as these words were spoken, the eyes of those immortal kings lit up. They didn't expect that this boy was only at the God King realm, but when facing them, he could remain neither humble nor arrogant and think calmly. Yes, it is difficult for even ordinary geniuses to possess such a mentality. If it were someone else, he would probably have been scared to the point of being speechless, let alone being able to respond calmly. They couldn't help but feel a lot more favorable towards Nangong Chen. That's fine. I see that you've also cultivated your physical body and have achieved some accomplishments. You're more suitable for my inheritance, so I made the suggestion. The immortal king Tianqi waved his hand and said with a smile. After he finished speaking, the fairy king Qiushui, who looked like a little girl beside him, rolled his eyes at him and said unhappily, "All right, stop pretending to be a hermit. We've finally found a younger generation with extraordinary talent. Let's just follow the old rules." Oh, the old rules are the old rules. I just don't believe that guy won't get excited about my body in the end. After hearing this, the immortal king Tianqi spoke with confidence, and then his scorching gaze fell on Nangong Chen. Nangong Chen was a little confused. Old rules. The immortal General Shangfang on the side did not say anything this time, because he didn't know what the old rules of these terrifying beings were. At this moment, after seeing this, the Autumn Water Fairy King slapped his head and muttered, "Oh, I forgot you didn't know. The so-called old rules are that you are special. In the past, we chose the geniuses who came in, but you're different. After we have demonstrated our own great ways, you can choose the inheritance of one of us. In short, you can choose any of our inheritances, but you can only choose one." After he finished speaking, the whole audience was speechless. Those true immortals opened their eyes wide as if they had seen a ghost, and their mouths were so wide open that an egg could fit in. They must have heard it right. This genius of a human race can actually choose the immortal king inheritance, instead of the immortal king inheritance choosing him. At this moment, they all looked at Nangong Chen with complicated expressions. None of them expected that the talent of the man with double pupils was much higher than they imagined, and he could even attract these immortal kings to fight for him. This was a huge shock in the history of the entire Heritage Temple, and it was the first time in history. For a moment, those true immortals who had not extended an olive branch to Nangong Chen regretted it. If the boy could remember me, there would be a chance. I see. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, a look of realization on his face. And just when those immortal kings were about to unfold their own paths and let Nangong Chen choose, a cold and emotionless voice suddenly sounded from the starry sky, echoing in everyone's ears. "No need to choose, I like this boy." At this moment, the whole place was silent. The immortal kings looked at the graceful figure that suddenly appeared in the void with horror on their faces. Nangong Chen's pupils also shrank, and he stared blankly at the beautiful woman who appeared in the air. What shocked him was that the other person's eyes were exactly the same as his, with double pupils. The woman was standing barefoot in the air, wearing a black dress with stars in it. Under her black hair was an extremely beautiful face. I don't know what words to use to describe her. She was simply stunning. But more importantly, her eyes were covered by a chaotic aura, with her dark pupils overlapping. When they opened and closed, there were visions of the sky and earth collapsing and the sun and moon being destroyed, which was extremely terrifying. When the immortals present saw this, they all felt a surge of pressure coming towards them, almost suffocating them. "You are still here." When the fairy king saw the girl with double pupils, his eyes widened, and he was shocked, as if he had seen a ghost. The other immortal kings had similar reactions. Their faces turned pale, and they couldn't stop retreating. They remembered that the other party had left long ago, but they didn't expect that after so much time had passed, they would still see each other. Could it be a divine thought left behind? Some immortal kings thought that this pressure felt both familiar and unfamiliar to them. When the true immortals felt the pressure coming, they had already knelt on the ground in fear and trepidation, not daring to look up for fear of causing trouble. While the group of immortal kings were in a trance, the figures of the girl with double pupils and Nangong Chen had already disappeared from the spot. Obviously, Nangong Chen was taken away by them. Chapter 348. The universe changes, the exhaustion of the woman with double pupils. They seem to have left. After a long time, these immortal kings slowly came back to their senses. Someone saw the place where Nangong Chen disappeared and spoke out. After he finished speaking, they all looked up and saw that the terrifying figure had really disappeared from the spot. Only then did they breathe a sigh of relief. There was no way. That woman was too terrifying, and the sense of oppression she gave them was too great. No one expected that the genius they had originally chosen would be snatched away by the girl with double pupils who suddenly appeared, and in such a domineering way, taking the person away as soon as she said that. Thinking of this, the Autumn Water Fairy King smiled bitterly and sighed. It's been so long since we last met, but his personality hasn't changed at all. Upon hearing this, the immortal King Tianchi first punched the air, causing ripples, and then spoke with an unwilling look on his face. Alas, I finally saw a descendant that suits my taste. And he's gone just like that. Do you know how outrageous that kid's physical body is? His blood and energy are as vigorous as a dragon's. He's even more perverted than any real dragon's descendants I've ever seen. What a damn shame. When these words were spoken, their expressions changed slightly, but they really hadn't noticed it. It's no wonder that the opponent, who has not competed for many years, would take the initiative to talk to that boy today. A person like Chongtong still has such physical strength. I am afraid that no one of his generation in the outside world can beat him. No wonder he is the #1 in this session of Immortal Treasures. Although they had not shown up before, they had been observing the entire hall and knew about the previous human geniuses. But those people's qualifications were too poor, far from meeting their standards. Even if they wanted to pass on their inheritance to them, they could not. However, there was a human girl that they quite liked, but unfortunately she had already inherited someone else's legacy. So when they saw her for the first time, they fell into a deep sleep and did not continue to watch her, so they chose to give up on that genius. However, that was not the end of the matter. They had finally managed to get a genius that they admired, but before they could even fight for him, he was snatched away by someone else. At this moment, these immortal kings all looked aggrieved. By the way, the bloodline of that young man is not simple either. It actually makes me feel a little wary. There were also immortal kings who realized it later, shook their heads, and spoke out. After he finished speaking, the other immortal kings nodded, their eyes flickering, and no one knew what they were thinking. There are only a few people of their level who can make them feel intimidated. I just don't know which master this young man is the descendant of. Alas, what's the point of being depressed here? Can I still go and rob? I might as well go back and take a shower and go to bed. At this moment, the Autumn Water Fairy King sighed, turned around and left, and then, as if thinking of something, added, if that person is really just a divine thought, then how powerful must her true body be? How could it be a divine thought? I've seen her in person, and the aura she just had was exactly like hers, even stronger than when I saw her before. As soon as he finished speaking, the immortal king of Apocalypse directly denied it. Oh, the past is the past. So much time has passed, who knows? Besides, if it is really her true body, then it is even more impossible for her to be in this inheritance temple. How he died, have you forgotten? The fairy king stopped and sneered. After these words were spoken, the immortal king of Apocalypse became much quieter and did not say anything more. However, a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. You're right, this shouldn't be her. That child has suffered a lot for her over the years. After these words were spoken, the atmosphere among the immortal kings present suddenly became a little depressing. They seemed to recall some bad memories, shook their heads, and quickly disappeared from the spot. At this moment, only the group of true immortals were left in the entire hall. They looked at each other, their faces full of shock, but no one said a word. Today, it really broadened their horizons. I didn't expect that there would be such a person in the Temple of Inheritance who could snatch food from the mouths of many immortal kings and take that kid away directly and domineeringly. What is even more surprising is that the immortal kings did not dare to say anything when they saw this, and could only watch the other party leave. Who is that person? A true immortal from another race asked in a low voice, looking at Old Yu and the other two. Old Yu's face was filled with reminiscence. A hint of admiration appeared in his eyes, and he shook his head and said softly, "It's a taboo, and I dare not speak of its name lightly." As soon as these words were spoken, all the true immortals present were speechless. On the other side, deep in the starry sky, Seeing the girl with double pupils finally stop, Nangong Chen took a deep breath. He really didn't know where the other party was going to take him. Although the other party has the same physique as him, he still has to be on guard against him, especially since the other party is such a powerful being who can probably destroy him with just a breath. Thinking of this, his face became serious. Along the way, Nangong Chen was guessing the other party's strength, wondering how powerful the other party must be to make those immortal kings speechless, not even daring to complain, and just take him away like that. However, after looking at the other person's back for a long time, I could only say good luck and nothing else. There is no way. In the face of such enormous strength, even someone with double pupils cannot see a single thing. Suddenly, the girl with double pupils spoke. She looked at the stars in front of her with a complicated look in her eyes and said, "Do you know why I brought you here?" Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen also looked up, and after seeing it, his pupils suddenly shrank. One indescribable scene. The stars in the sky were almost all swallowed up by the black fog, and it was pitch black with no end in sight. This is outside the sea in the vast universe. The girl with double pupils was silent for a while, and then spoke. The vast universe? After hearing this, Nangong Chen's face changed slightly. This was not the scene he saw when he was crossing the sea. The big star over there is bright and full of vitality. The entire 10 domains are full of life. There is no such dead silence as we see now. Even his double pupils could see that those stars were beneath the black fog, their vitality completely dissipated, dim and without light, like a dead star. The most important thing is that it is not an isolated case, but that such scenes can be seen everywhere. Nangong Chen was completely shocked and said in a lost voice, "What on earth happened in this vast universe?" The girl with double pupils did not answer him, but pointed to an area in the universe where there were some stars twinkling, but they were not particularly obvious and difficult to find without careful observation. Nangong Chen also looked in the direction of the other party's finger, but when he saw it, he looked a little confused. What does the other party want to tell him? The girl with double pupils spoke slowly, and her voice, which was as sweet as flowing water, was now extremely cold. That is the 9 heavens and 10 realms. As soon as these words were spoken, Nangong Chen's mind went blank, and then his eyes became blazing as he turned to look at the area the other party had just pointed at. That's the 9 heavens and 10 realms? He must have heard it right. In that area, the only stars that shone with some luster were surrounded by black fog. Whenever the black fog tried to penetrate inside, most of it was dissipated by an inexplicable force. A small part of the black fog has already entered and is slowly devouring the 9 heavens and 10 realms. Although the speed seemed extremely slow from Nangong Chen's perspective, it was extremely obvious in the 9 heavens and 10 realms. It could be said that the speed was visible to the naked eye, and it was about to swallow up those unpolluted big stars. Even at that speed, it would take less than an epoch to completely devour the 9 heavens and 10 realms. At this moment, Nangong Chen's mind was blank. He couldn't believe that the 9 heavens and 10 realms, were born in such a harsh environment. What exactly is that black mist? Nangong Chen suppressed his emotions and asked calmly. The next moment, the girl with double pupils hooked her finger and drew the wisp of black mist to her fingertips, and then she made a gesture of Buddha with her white hands. Between heaven and earth, an extremely surging demonic energy erupted. Nangong Chen was puzzled and continued to look. When he saw the evil spirit dissipate, his face showed some surprise. A bull demon as huge as a mountain appeared in Nangong Chen's eyes. The bull demon had green wings on its back, and its red horns had been broken in two. Its body was covered with scars, and its pupils were pale, as if it had been abused. Just a drop of blood from the bull demon can shatter half a star. In an instant, the terrifying and suffocating pressure attacked Nangong Chen. Under this pressure, even though Nangong Chen's body was many times stronger than that of his contemporaries, he still felt extremely exhausted, as if a mountain was pressing down on him. He recognized that the bull demon in front of him seemed to be the ancestor of the winged bull, the sky-shocking bull. According to legend, each of them had the cultivation level of a true immortal and was extremely powerful. He didn't know why the other party was covered in scars, but he had a vague idea that the bull demon must have angered the girl with double pupils. And at this moment, the girl with double pupils took action. With a raise of her hand, she helped Nangong Chen eliminate the terrifying pressure. After feeling that the pressure finally disappeared, Nangong Chen was panting and his face was extremely pale, as if he had walked back from the gates of hell. He kept his eyes fixed on the girl with double pupils, feeling somewhat bewildered. He didn't know what she was going to do by summoning this extremely powerful bull. The sky-shaking bull raised its eyelids and opened its eyes, revealing its silver pupils. When it saw the woman with double pupils in front of it, it suddenly became restless, The golden blood kept spilling and its eyes trembled, as if it had seen a devil. Kill me, I will never dare to. Before the sky-shaking bull could finish his words, the girl with double pupils just tapped her fingertips, and instantly, the black mist burst out and poured into the sky-shaking bull's body. After the black mist rushed into the body of the thunder bull, it screamed in agony, a sharp and loud cry. At the same time, its injuries continued to heal, and its broken horns also regenerated. After a while, the thunder bull recovered to a state that was even stronger than before, but the strangest thing was that its eyes were bright scarlet, like a blood moon, staring straight at the two of them. You cannot disobey him. You cannot disobey him. Girl with double pupils, you will die. The sky-shaking bull looked a little crazy, muttered a few words to itself, and then cast a fierce look on the two of them, and stepped forward with its hooves. Seeing the mad Tianyuan, Nangong Chen swallowed secretly and was extremely shocked. Those eyes, aren't they the same as those creatures in the first round of the Immortal Treasure? The black fog was so strange that it could make the opponent lose their mind and instantly recover from their injuries. It could also increase the strength of the creature to a higher level, reaching a level even stronger than the peak. They saw that the sky-shaking bull had already reached above their heads, blocking out the sky and the sun, and was about to fall. The next moment, the eyes of the woman with double pupils were blazing, and runes flickered as her pupils opened and closed. She just took a simple look at the already mad thunder bull, and it was as if an astonishing force erupted, strangling the thunder bull, and the starry sky suddenly became quiet. After a few breaths, the sky-shaking bull lost all its vitality and fell directly into the abyss below like a dead object. Upon seeing this, Nangong Chen's eyes were filled with horror. He had never expected that the sky-shaking bull, which was much stronger than ordinary true immortals, would die just like that. He didn't even see the girl with double pupils make a move. She dealt with the other person with just a glance. How strong must that girl with double pupils be? After he came to his senses, he gave the other person a complicated look. The girl with double pupils did not show any emotion from beginning to end, as if she was doing something insignificant. She said, "Did you see clearly?" Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his eyes filled with fear as he looked at the endless black fog. This black fog can corrode people's minds so quickly that even a true immortal cannot stop it. If it really devours the 9 heavens and 10 realms, the consequences are simply unimaginable. Everyone will completely lose themselves and become a killing machine, including himself. One can imagine how terrifying this black fog is. Where did this black fog come from? After a long time, Nangong Chen asked again. Upon hearing this, the girl with double pupils had a blazing gaze in her eyes. She looked up at the sky, where a blood moon hung in the sky, emitting strange and evil light and continuously releasing black mist. Nangong Chen followed the other person's gaze and saw that the sky was empty and there was nothing at all. Suddenly, he looked at the other person with some confusion. The girl with double pupils just shook her head without explaining, and then lightly tapped her fingers, transmitting a memory into Nangong Chen's mind. Nangong Chen was stunned on the spot, feeling a surge of extremely profound memories flooding into his mind. Just as his mind was digesting the memory, in a trance, the ethereal voice like a wind chime sounded again. This time, the tone revealed a sense of fatigue. This is the ultimate secret of the double pupil that you're looking for. The double pupil opens the sky. It contains all my insights and experiences on double pupil cultivation. Also, they are coming. I can't beat them. They are very powerful. I hope you can come and help me as soon as possible. As soon as he finished speaking, Nangong Chen's consciousness fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 349 9-Star Inheritance, Peerless Style. At this moment, in the outside world, it's been 10 hours already. Could something have happened to that kid in there? Otherwise, it's been too long. A creature in the 10 realms whispered softly. After he finished speaking, some creatures who had previously been pessimistic about Nangong Chen also spoke out one after another, their eyes cold. It's better to die. That human race was so domineering. First that boy, then that woman. They deserve death. You humiliated us and killed our proud heroes. This revenge will be paid sooner or later. From my perspective, that kid couldn't get the inheritance, so he's too embarrassed to come out of the temple. TSK, it's been so long. After hearing these cold voices, even those human supporters who had previously been convinced that Nangong Chen could obtain the inheritance were now shaken. There was no other reason. Nangong Chen had been in there for too long, far beyond their understanding. It was even longer than the time spent by the previous 9 geniuses combined. It was hard not to suspect that something had happened to him in there. At this moment, facing the ridicule of those creatures, Xin Tianyuan and others frowned. Although they were filled with anger, they ignored it and their eyes were still fixed on the magnificent temple. They didn't believe that such a talented genius would really get into trouble in the inheritance temple. It might just take a long time for the inheritance. In the void, the old sect leader, Wang Qi, Ning Rong, and other strong men were silent for a while, with extremely gloomy expressions. Li Songhai, who had previously believed that Nangong Chen could obtain the inheritance, now frowned, his face full of worry. Did something really happen to him in there? That's not right. How could something happen to someone with such luck, like a dragon? If something really happens, it will be the end of us. At the same time, Zhao Lei also shook his head and said, however, the pavilion master of Tianbao Pavilion quickly denied it. Nothing will happen. After all, the heritage temple has been around for thousands of years, and according to records, almost no one has been in trouble. The probability is extremely low. But the important thing is whether he can get the inheritance. After he finished speaking, he glanced down with worry. The powerful men followed his gaze and saw that the monks who were waiting anxiously below had their faith in Taoism shaken, and their faces looked a little desperate. If the one with double pupils really didn't get the inheritance, then none of the human geniuses who entered this time would have obtained the inheritance. This incident would be enough to be the greatest shame in the history of the human race. And those rumors that are against the will of heaven will be confirmed at this moment, which is extremely unfavorable for the future of the human race. Even those with extraordinary talents like those with double pupils do not have the potential to become immortals. So how can they cultivate to become immortals, and how can they compete with others? In Chu City, some disciples of the Sun God Palace saw that the supporters of those with double pupils were wavering, and they were fanning the flames, wishing the fire would burn bigger. Alas, 10 hours have passed. I guess that person with double pupils is just a facade, exaggerated by the world. He's called the greatest genius in history. Yeah, he's not the one to take a piss and see what kind of person he is. He even dared to humiliate other domains on behalf of our human race before, but now he's hiding and nothing has happened to him. On the contrary, it's us who will be retaliated by other domains sooner or later. He is the eternal sinner, the biggest cancer in Xintian territory. We should report this to the palace master and ask the powerful people in Xintian territory to separate the power of the person with double pupils and let them bear the consequences of their own sins. When these words were spoken, although no one spoke up to agree with them at this critical moment, they still confused the minds of many people. They have always regarded people with double pupils as gods, but now people with double pupils are about to fall from the altar. Why shouldn't they be anxious and worried? Although Chu Xing controlled some of the disciples of the Sun God Palace who had just fanned the flames in the crowd, he was also very powerless and felt exhausted. He had already tried his best and removed a lot of the Chu family's authority. If he continued, he would not be able to control the fire. The captured Sun God Palace disciple sneered upon seeing this. What's the point of you arresting me? That person with double pupils is an eternal sinner. He has ruined the reputation of our Xintian realm. Yet he himself is hiding in that holy temple and living a peaceful life. You are all accomplices. Sooner or later you will face justice. But before the man could finish his words, Chu Xing slapped him with a big punch and cursed him coldly. You talk too much. Then, Chu Xing stared at the empty throne in a daze, as if the figure in snow-covered clothes was still there. When the man from the Sun God Palace saw this, although his face was burning with pain, he couldn't help but smile. Still fantasizing? Well, let's see how the gods in your eyes can rise from the bottom of the valley with their own hands. Now that such a big mess has been caused, no matter who it is, it will be impossible for them to get out of the temple of inheritance. Thinking of this, he looked at the inheritance temple in the sky with a firm gaze. Soon, his smile froze, and his pupils shrank suddenly, as if he had seen a ghost. There was no other reason. The inheritance temple in the starry sky actually began to shine. Boom! A huge roar echoed from the starry sky, like a huge bell, and spread across the entire 10 realms. At this moment, in the battlefield of heaven and earth, Li Qixin and others, who had been somewhat dejected before, suddenly raised their heads and looked towards the inheritance temple not far away after hearing the noise. The creatures in the 10 realms also realized it later and subconsciously looked up at the sky. When they saw the scene in front of them, their minds went blank. I saw that the inheritance temple was as bright as the full moon at this time, bursting out with a blazing light, illuminating the entire starry sky. Not only that, even the giant sword in the center of the temple began to shake, and runes kept flashing, as if it was about to come into the world. After a few breaths, the 1-star rune on the giant sword suddenly lit up in full view of everyone. After Xian Tianyu and others saw it, they first looked in disbelief, and then their faces were filled with excitement. 1-star inheritance, the appearance of a true immortal, the one with double pupils has achieved it. The creatures from other domains who had previously questioned Nangong Chen were also silent at this moment. Someone from the God clan sneered. It's just a one-star inheritance, yet they're so happy. They're truly unworldly bumpkins. 2 stars, 2 stars. At this moment, no one knew who it was, but someone exclaimed and spoke tremblingly. Everyone looked over quickly and saw that the rune on the giant sword had already lit up 2 stars. They were horrified. However, what happened next was the most unforgettable scene in their lives. The brilliance of the giant sword continued to climb, like a divine light rising into the sky, rising from the ground, unstoppable. 2 stars. Samsung. 4 stars. 5 stars. 6 stars. 7 stars. 8 stars. 9 stars. At this moment, the giant sword seemed to be revived as a divine sword, and the sword body was shining with brilliant light from top to bottom. 9-star inheritance, peerless appearance. In an instant, the whole world became quiet. All living beings were staring at this scene in a daze. Their minds were blank, and their pupils were filled with the pale reflection of the divine light. That kid is actually the legendary 9-star. Even the Star Envoy was silent at this moment. After a while, overwhelming sounds of joy came from the Tianyuan realm, and at the same time, the rumors that the human race had denounced were completely shattered. Oh my god, I must be dreaming. The one with double pupils is actually the legendary 9 stars. At this moment, I don't know how to express my shock. I can only instinctively say, people with double pupils are awesome. People with double pupils are awesome. People with double pupils are awesome. And those creatures from other domains who had previously mocked Nangong Chen also fought back immediately. Hey, you yellow-haired skull, stop looking. I'm talking about you. You were the one who said that we humans are no good, weren't you? Now open your fucking bones wide and take a good look. How many stars are shining there? After those words were spoken, a young creature in the evil realm looked embarrassed and quickly left the place. And that guy from your god clan, didn't he brag about his 1-star inheritance before? Wasn't he quite pretentious just now? Didn't he like to laugh? Why isn't he smiling now? His face is so dark. Is he worried about something? After hearing this, several young men from the god clan suppressed their anger, pointed at them, and were speechless. The villain is in power. One of the young men from the god clan was a little angry and said in a cold voice. But soon, another monk fought back. Come on, everyone knows how pretentious you were before. You boasted to the skies after you released a 1-star inheritance, even saying that the human race had taken up spots from other domains. You were being sarcastic, and now you're pretending to be wronged. You deserve it. We humans earn the quota based on our own strength, and you're really thinking about it? Even if we give you the quota, you're useless. Can you produce a 9-star inheritance? As soon as these words were spoken, the several powerful gods who had previously instigated discord became furious and spat out a mouthful of blood. They looked at them viciously and then disappeared on the spot. Seeing this, Chu Xing, under the pig head mask, showed an extremely satisfied smile. This is exactly the effect he wants. In the battlefield of heaven and earth, Li Qixin and his companions were also silent. It was not until the extremely excited voice of the human race reached their ears that they slowly reacted. Li Qixin looked at the 9 dazzling stars on the giant sword and was speechless for a moment. Am I dreaming? The others were speechless and just stared at the sky. No one expected that the other party had stayed in there for such a long time and actually gave them such a big surprise. The 9-star inheritance and peerless beauty were things they couldn't even dream of. As for Jiang Yingwei, her expression was also a little stiff at this moment. She knows better than anyone else here what the 9-star inheritance means. She is an existence that will definitely make it into the ranks of immortal kings in the future. She put away her previous contempt and murmured, "It seems that a formidable monster has appeared in this era." Not far from them, Su Li's eyes were moving. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and 3,000 silver threads were scattered on her shoulders. She was also happy for Nangong Chen from the bottom of her heart. The 9-star inheritance, worthy of you, is truly amazing. As for the geniuses from other domains present, except for the extremely excited Hu Yaoyao, everyone else was silent and didn't say a word. The Buddhist disciple's face turned pale. He could never have imagined that Nangong Chen actually obtained a 9 stars inheritance. You know, his twin body didn't even get 1 star. For a moment, his eyes were red as he looked at the heritage temple, his hands clenched. Why? This suddenly made his previous arrogance plummet to the bottom. Xian Xiangling of the God clan also remained silent. She knew that the fact was set in stone. Her 1-star inheritance was far behind the other parties. They were completely on the same level. It seems that what the other party said before about sparring was not a lie. 1,000 fairy crystals. It seems that if I just save a little, it is not a bad idea to become stronger. Xian Xiangling's little face suddenly fell into deep thought. Xian Hong, who was standing by, sighed once again. Son of God, your death was not unjust at all. To die under the 9 stars inheritance, to be honest, without exaggeration or slander, it is an honor for the Son of God. But I wonder what Xuanjia, who is in the netherworld, would think when he knew what he was thinking. In the starry sky, those powerful men from the 9 realms who were at the peak of their powers also fell into deathly silence. Only the Demon King smiled and looked at the previously arrogant God Clan strongman, saying, Fellow Taoist, I've already told you not to underestimate others. Look, isn't this a slap in the face? After hearing this, the powerful man from the God Clan slowly reacted and said in a cold voice, You are right, Taoist friend. I didn't expect that the boy really got the inheritance. And it wasn't just an ordinary inheritance, but the legendary 9-star inheritance. This made him lose face, and he seemed to hear the sound of being hit in the face. Lane Arhut, standing aside, was also speechless. He just took a deep look at the inheritance temple, his eyes full of complexity. In the Sea King was feeling terrified. After seeing Nangong Chen obtain the 9-star inheritance, he finally understood why the Star Envoy had been so protective of him, even going so far as to threaten him. He suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If he had really taken action at that time, and had really had a hint of murderous intention, he would probably have been wiped out on the spot. The only thing he was thankful for was that he did not become such a complete enemy of the other party. With such talent, it was only a matter of time before the other party surpassed him. I wonder what surprise he has for me. Poseidon couldn't help but think of what the boy said before he left, and felt a little excited inside. I'm afraid that such an existence will not fool myself and give me a surprise, so it must be something extraordinary. However, thinking about what the other party said that he could only go and see it after returning, Poseidon forced himself to suppress the urge to take it apart and decided to go back and find out what was going on. Chapter 350. The End of the Immortal Hidden World, the Blood God Cult's Plan. Just as the entire battlefield of heaven and earth was in shock, the door of the Temple of Heritage was quietly pushed open. A dazzling ray of light shot out from the crack in the door, illuminating the spotless white robe. If the person coming is not Nangong Chen, who else could it be? In an instant, the whole audience fell silent. Everyone was staring at the young man, as if they were looking at a monster. But what made them even more curious was what kind of expression the other party had at that moment. Are you excited, or crying with joy, or laughing out loud? But unfortunately, everyone only saw deep calmness on that stern face, without a single ripple, as if it was natural and destined for the other party to obtain the 9-star inheritance. This calm reaction made many people admire him even more, and they lamented that he was worthy of being the owner of the 9-star inheritance. Such a nonchalant attitude is something that many geniuses cannot achieve. If it were someone else, they would probably be extremely proud of achieving such success at a young age. Nangong Chen, dressed in white, stepped into the air with an indifferent expression. The difference from before was that the aura of the young man became more ethereal, like a real banished immortal. Soon, cheers like waves rang out from the Tianyuan realm. The one with double pupils is awesome. With the 9-star inheritance, he is simply the young hero of our Tianyuan realm. This is a true legend. With people with double pupils here, there's no need to worry about the prosperity of our human race in the future. The guy with double pupils is so handsome. From now on, I declare him our idol. I used to be dissatisfied with why the double pupil man had so many female supporters, but now I understand. He is a real man, really awesome, and a role model for my generation. At this moment, the boys and girls in Tianyuan territory all had fanatical expressions on their faces, loudly shouting the 3 words, people with double pupils. A person with double pupils. A person with double pupils. After hearing the cheers, Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. It was the first time for him to feel the cheers from such a huge crowd, and it was also the first time for him to have so many supporters. At this moment, he was also touched. For a moment, his eyes were extremely complicated as he looked at those young and fresh faces. The black fog is coming. They're so weak, can they protect themselves in the future, or will they all die in the end? He is not a man of great justice, nor does he have such lofty ideals as protecting the entire human race. He only wants to protect the people he cares about. This is the meaning of his cultivation. In the Temple of Inheritance, the scene that the girl with double pupils showed him further strengthened his idea. In a trance, the last 3 sentences spoken by the girl with double pupils seemed to echo in his ears again. This is the ultimate secret of the double pupil that you're looking for. The double pupil opens the sky. It contains all my insights and experiences on double pupil cultivation. Also, they are coming. I can't beat them. They are very powerful. I hope you can come and help me as soon as possible. After digesting all the memories passed down to him by the girl with double pupils, Nangong Chen finally realized how high the upper limit of double pupils was. It can be said that if it is fully developed, it is simply not inferior to any other physique in the world. And that Chongtong Kaitian is the most powerful means in Chongtong's killing technique, and also the most profound mystery. If he had not swallowed the Hongming Dao fruit before and raised his comprehension to a terrifying level, he probably wouldn't even be able to understand it. At this time, the understanding improved by the Hongming Dao fruit was revealed, but now he has not officially started to practice this supreme mystery. He has predicted that if he starts to practice, his strength will undergo earth-shaking changes. This was the benefit that memory brought him, and it was far more than that. The girl with double pupils had a very deep understanding of double pupils. Even after he digested the memory, he still had to spend a lot of time studying it, otherwise it would be difficult to understand. As for the last two sentences said by the girl with double pupils, those were what puzzled him. Who were they? Even such a powerful girl with double pupils admitted that she couldn't defeat them. It's hard to imagine how powerful the enemy she mentioned was. Let myself help her. Can I really do it? Nangong Chen couldn't help but feel a little confused. The other party trusted him too much. He was afraid that when facing such an existence, the other party could blow him out with just a breath. Forget it. Let's just take it one step at a time. The girl with double pupils is now his mentor and has passed on all his life's knowledge to him. If he can really grow to that level in the future, why not help her? Nangong Chen shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He walked towards the battlefield of heaven and earth. If he guessed correctly, they should be leaving the immortal treasure soon. In the battlefield of heaven and earth, the geniuses from other domains were looking at Nangong Chen with extremely complicated eyes, as if they were looking at a monster. They really couldn't understand why such a monster would appear in the same class as them. They sighed secretly. It was both fortunate and unfortunate that such a leader appeared in the same era. Li Qixin and the others were extremely excited. They looked forward with admiration and offered congratulations. Brother Nangong is truly a rare talent. Congratulations to Brother Nangong for obtaining the 9-star inheritance. You will surely rise to great heights in the future. I hope that when you become an immortal in the future, you will not forget our friendship and will look after us. Li Qixin joked, his eyes full of surprise and admiration. Just kidding, becoming immortal is still too far away from me right now. Nangong Chen shook his head and spoke. At this moment, Li Qixin seemed to have thought of something and continued. Ha, Brother Nangong, you have no idea how rampant the creatures from other realms became after you entered the Heritage Temple, especially those from the evil realm. If it weren't for Goddess Su's intervention, they would have been so arrogant. Luckily, Brother Nangong has extraordinary talent and obtained the 9-star inheritance. He slapped them in the face. When they saw it, their faces were as ugly as if they had fallen into a cesspool. Yeah. After hearing this, Nangong Chen looked thoughtful and glanced at Su Li. He didn't expect that the other party would fight for him. It seems that this girl still cares about him. It was worth it that he asked people to beat the immortal King Fo before leaving. He almost beat him to death, but he was almost dead. Of course, this story has to start from when he woke up. When he regained consciousness, he was already inside the palace. The immortal kings who had previously extended olive branches to him were incredibly enthusiastic. Upon seeing him, they all came forward, asking about his well-being and what he wanted. Upon hearing this, he told them what had just happened to Su Li, and after the immortal kings knew about it, they sincerely apologized to him. They said it was their negligence. They originally thought that Su Li had a legacy, so after Su Li came in, they fell into a deep sleep and didn't think about fighting for it. They didn't know what happened in the hall. When they learned about this, they were also furious. They did not expect that the immortal King Fa Wu would be so crazy as to suspect his descendants. They immediately promised themselves that they would give him an explanation. Soon, they took action, beating the dying Fa Wu Xian Wang half to death, and even dragged him over like a dead dog to apologize to him. The muscular immortal king even said that he wanted to kill the immortal King Fa Wu to celebrate for him, but he immediately refused. He knew Su Li's character and decided to let Su Li grow up and take revenge himself. Then, the matter was over. After thanking them, he left the Temple of Heritage. Of course, Su Li didn't know all this. If she knew, the little girl would probably be so moved that she would cry. At this moment, Su Li saw the look in Nangong Chen's eyes and slightly raised her crystal white chin. Her eager eyes seemed to be telling Nangong Chen, "Are you touched?" Nangong Chen raised his eyebrows, feeling a little amused and helpless, and could only nod silently. Chu Yin and Shi Ming also saw all of this, and a hint of sadness flashed in the depths of their beautiful eyes. Chu Yin knew that after this trip, the two of them would have no connection anymore. As for the reward her father had mentioned at the time, that if he found Chu Zuling, he could become a son-in-law in the Chu family, the other party might not have cared about it, or even took it seriously. Shiming felt sorry that such an outstanding man was already married. If she couldn't find such a man, she might never be attracted to anyone else in her life. While everyone was lost in thought, the star envoy spoke. Everyone has entered the Heritage Temple, and the immortal hiding has been completely completed. Within one stick of incense, you will all return to your own domains. As soon as these words were spoken, the geniuses from other domains all breathed a sigh of relief and looked happy. Damn it, I can finally leave and don't have to stay with that monster anymore. They really don't want to suffer from the torture of daily stimulation again in their lives. As for Tianyuan and others, they were also overjoyed. For the past 2 months, they had also suffered a lot and had not even had a good night's sleep. They were mentally exhausted to the extreme. After experiencing several near-death experiences, they just wanted to return to their homes and have a good sleep. At this moment, far above the sky, that ghostly figure appeared again. She wore a ghost mask, but her eyes were filled with shock. She muttered to herself, 9-star inheritance. Even the G family doesn't have such a monster. She is now more and more satisfied with Nangong Chen, no matter from which aspect. But soon, the beautiful face under the mask frowned, as if she had received some bad news, and murmured. Something happened in the clan. No, I have to go back for 3 to 5 days. Nothing should happen in these few days. Xiaochen, don't worry, I will be back soon. As soon as she finished speaking, the ghost-faced woman disappeared into the air. Tianyuan realm. In the void, those strong men also looked at the young man in snow-white clothes surrounded by the geniuses with great satisfaction. Nangong Chen really created a miracle for them again. I told you, there's no way this kid won't inherit the true immortal's legacy. People like him are destined to become immortals. The head of Tianbao Pavilion laughed. Li Songhai and others looked at each other in surprise. It was hard to imagine that such a shocking monster would appear in this trip to the immortal treasury. The light on his body was so dazzling that no one could ignore it. From the beginning, when his fame shook central China and later spread throughout the entire Xinjiang region, as witnesses of it, they felt extremely dreamy, as if they were witnessing the rise of an immortal. This boy has grown into a full-grown talent. After he returns, in a few years, no one in Xinjiang territory will be able to defeat him. Li Songhai also sighed. After seeing this scene, Elder Xiong fell into reminiscence. He never thought that the young man who came to compensate Urushan for the bet that day would have changed so much. He was very thankful that Urushan was beaten up by the other party that day, instead of being stubborn and turning such a terrifying genius into a vicious enemy, just like the Sun God Palace was in such a miserable state. Get ready to go. It's time to take them home. These children have worked hard over the past 2 months. The old sect leader spoke. After those words were spoken, everyone stood up and headed towards Chu City, transforming into streams of light. Chu City. In a hidden alley, 5 figures in black cloaks suddenly appeared. If you look closely, you will definitely find the blood moon symbol on their black clothes. Obviously, they are members of the blood god cult. The blood moons on the robes of 4 of them were white, except for one figure whose blood moon was red. Moyo, have you finished what you were asked to do? The man in the red blood moon robe spoke, carrying an invisible aura, and spoke in a deep voice. One of the 4 men in the white blood moon robes responded respectfully, reporting to Master, everything is ready. Fun Dao has successfully infiltrated the Chu family's ancestral land and is ready to destroy the 7-star formation at any time. If you look closely, you'll find that the man named Moyo is the one who had talked with Fun Dao before, and he is also one of the 4 leaders of the Blood God sect, Moyo. Yes, you have made the greatest contribution to this matter. If this matter is over, I will tell the Pope the truth. The red-robed figure nodded slightly and spoke slowly in a hoarse voice. He then looked at the other 3 people with a piercing gaze. And you, if this succeeds, the 3 of you will be among the 4 future seats, just filling the vacancies left by those 3 losers. As soon as these words came out, Moyu was instantly extremely excited and said respectfully, "Thank you, Master." The other 3 were also very excited. It was simply a waste of time for them to be the 4th seat, so they hurriedly expressed their gratitude. Everyone knows that the Blood God cult has placed its focus on Xinjiang domain this time, and has even mobilized people from the other 9 domains of the Blood God cult. The headquarters has even sent a special envoy to assist them in hunting down these geniuses. 1 envoy, plus 4 nominal seats, and 8 elite teachers under his command. This lineup is simply extremely luxurious. If it were in the past, they would all be hunting down the Lord of Domain. In other words, today we have 1 Saint King for saints and 8 quasi-saints. If this happened in the Xinjiang domain, they could form a giant force. But today, they have used all of their strength for these geniuses whose hair has not even grown fully. They just don't believe that the things in their mouths can still fly. Chapter 351, Su Ming boldly guessed that Chu Cheng was in trouble. Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. In the palace, After a few breaths, all the civil and military officials in the court gradually recovered from the shock. The crown prince turns out to be a 9-star inheritance. Oh my god, I must be seeing things. Wei Zhong muttered, looking at the starry sky, his wrinkled face full of horror. Although he didn't have a particularly outstanding talent in cultivation, he knew what the 9-star inheritance meant. There is only one person in the entire 10 realms, and he has the qualifications of an immortal king. The immortal king is an existence above all immortals. The geniuses of other races who had previously obtained the inheritance only had a 1-star inheritance. However, within 10 hours of entering, the prince had ascended to the top in one step and was far ahead. After hearing this, the other ministers fell into silence. After seeing so many geniuses fail to obtain inheritance, they were somewhat disheartened and felt that the difficulty of inheriting the temple this time was too great. They only hoped that the crown prince and goddess, Su, could obtain inheritances below the 5-star level. However, they did not expect that someone with such extraordinary talent as goddess Su did not even receive the inheritance. When they saw this, they felt a little shaken and thought that the difficulty of inheriting the temple this time would be too great. They were even a little unsure, wondering if Nangong Chen would end up like goddess Su, receiving no inheritance at all. From the beginning, they also hoped that he would receive an inheritance below 5 stars, perhaps even a 1-star one. But who would have thought that even in such an unfavorable situation, their prince could actually go against the current and obtain a 9-star inheritance? At this moment, they just felt like they were dreaming. Su Ming was also genuinely happy for Nangong Chen, his son-in-law. He was a little nervous, wondering if Nangong Chen would dislike his daughter after seeing the prince perform so well. But soon, he gave up the idea. Nangong Chen on the stage thought for a moment, then said belatedly, "Hey, this isn't right. My brat can get 9 stars, so how could Su Li not get one?" It seems that something must have happened to Su Li after she entered the Heritage Temple, which interrupted the inheritance. You shouldn't blame her too much for this kind of accident. Nangong Chen spoke to Su Ming and others, taking the initiative to defend them. After hearing this, the ministers in the audience also shook their heads. What a joke. They are clear about their identities. How could they take the initiative to blame the future Empress Dowager? Isn't that like wishing their life is too short? Your Majesty. Su Ming was so moved that his eyes were filled with tears and red. He had not expected that His Majesty did not immediately celebrate the prince's acquisition of a 9-star inheritance, but instead took the initiative to defend his daughter. At this moment, he felt that the decision he made to marry Su Li into Tianyuan Mansion was extremely worthwhile. At this moment, Su Ming secretly made up his mind that he must serve the entire Tianyuan divine dynasty with all his heart and soul in the future. As long as he is not dead, I will work hard to the death and fulfill my duty as Prime Minister. After seeing Su Ming like this, Nangong Chen smiled and said jokingly, "Old Su, you are so old, and you are still doing this to me." Su Ming burst into laughter, looking at the scene in the sky. His serious face returned to his usual demeanor, and he said, "Your Majesty, now that the immortal hiding is over, the most urgent task is to bring the crown prince and crown princess back from Chu City without fail. If it takes too long, it might be dangerous." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of all the civil and military officials in the court changed. What is Prime Minister Su talking about? How could he be in danger out of the blue? "Oh, why do you say that?" Nangong Chen asked with deep eyes. He knew that the other party must have a reason for saying this. When the king of Zhou was conquering the world, everyone knew that he had a military advisor under his command named Su Ming, who was extremely wise and had great foresight. He was extremely famous at that time. At that time, the Tianyuan mansion also regarded the other party as a thorn in their side. If the other party had not retreated in time, did not interfere in the affairs of the court, and did not have much hostility towards the Tianyuan mansion, he would probably have been included in their assassination list long ago. Speaking of it is fate that we can gather here now. Nangong Chen secretly sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he was the emperor. If he let that kid come, he probably wouldn't know how to use people and who would be suitable for what job. It turns out that being a father is quite useful. Soon, Su Ming's voice was heard. "Have you forgotten the blood god cult from a while ago? When they infiltrated the Great Zhou, something was already amiss. If it were before that, the blood god cult would only be active in central Shenzhou at most, and would rarely appear in eastern Shenzhou or northern Shenzhou. And our divine dynasty's spies also received news in central Shenzhou. They said that a top-level force in Tianqi City was most likely wiped out by the blood god cult, leaving no one alive. The blood god cult has been so active recently, casually destroying a major force and even infiltrating the immortal treasures. All signs indicate that the blood god cult is about to make a big move in this era." Their goal has always been to hunt down geniuses and powerful individuals. Now that the matter of the immortal treasure has caused such a stir, how could they not know that our human race has produced two peerless geniuses in this world, and so many more are coming back? So, I boldly speculate that their next goal is to go to Chu City and kill our human race's genius, the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. After he finished speaking, everyone present fell silent. No one expected Su Ming to say such a thing. There's so many powerful people in Chu City. Moreover, the Chu family has the protection of the seven-star formation. Will the Blood God cult really choose to take action at this time? Someone asked in confusion. Chapter 352, Jade-Faced Shura. Su Ming shook his head when he heard this. Anything is possible. Although there are many powerful people in Chu City, they may not all sincerely protect those geniuses. Moreover, there's so many people flowing around. If chaos breaks out, it will be an excellent opportunity for the Blood God cult to take action. As for the seven-star formation, who can say whether they can handle it? Our understanding of the Blood God cult is too shallow, only the tip of the iceberg. We are far from knowing their true strength, so we need to pay close attention to them. After hearing this, Nangong Chen on the stage showed some worry in his eyes. What the other party said made no sense. So what should we do? Nangong Chen looked at Su Ming and asked. Su Ming smiled and said confidently, "It's simple. We just need to send out the strong men of our divine dynasty and suppress them with absolute strength." Ever since he knew how deep the water in Tianyuan Mansion was, he sighed more and more. Fortunately, he had been enemies with the other party before. The background of those powerful people alone was enough to easily destroy any force in Xintian realm. In that case, I understand. After hearing this, Nangong Chen nodded slightly, stroking the dragon armrest with his fingers, and soon said in a deep voice, "Where are the 8 great generals of Tianyuan?" As soon as those words fell, 8 extremely powerful figures instantly appeared in the hall. They were wearing golden armor, had tall bodies, eyes that flashed like cold lightning, and an aura as deep as the sea. Just by standing there, a powerful pressure spread out. "Your Majesty, we are waiting here." The 8 people spoke in unison, their voices as resounding as a huge bell. When the ministers present felt that astonishing aura, their pupils suddenly shrank. Are they all saints? Soon, Nangong Zhan's words confirmed their thoughts. He paused for a moment, a smile on his face. Thanks to Chen'er, ever since the Imperial Dao Dragon Vein was buried, the aptitude of these 8 generals has also been greatly improved in the spiritual reign, and they have all broken through to the saint level. After these words were spoken, everyone looked horrified. 8 saints who can be called upon at any time. What a concept! They're simply mobile explosives, the kind that can easily blow up top forces. Nangong Zhan's eyes flashed coldly, and he continued. The 8 of you will immediately set off for Chu City in central Shenzhou and bring the Crown Prince and Crown Princess back safely. Anyone who tries to stop you will be killed. Yes. As soon as the words fell, the 8 terrifying figures disappeared instantly. However, this is not over yet. Nangong Chen looked into the distance and murmured, "It's time to let those old men take action." After saying that, he also disappeared, as if he was going to do something important. The few people who stayed there looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Prime Minister Su, don't you think His Majesty is being too cautious by sending so many saints? Someone looked at Su Ming and whispered, "It's better to be more cautious. Your Majesty is doing the right thing." Su Ming didn't think anything of it. Instead, he agreed with the other party's idea. He would only feel at ease if everything was foolproof. Soon, he turned his head and looked inside the hall, as if he was looking for something. Not long after, he looked at a place with a gleam in his eyes and said, "Where's the prince's personal guard?" After the words fell, there was silence. Everyone looked in that direction and saw 2 sneaky figures at the door. That's right, those 2 people are Wang Yuxuan and Zhou Waner. At this moment, they were preparing to sneak away and wanted to follow those saints to Chu City to welcome Nangong Chen. I'm here." Wang Yuxuan laughed awkwardly, then quickly straightened her back and looked at everyone, but there was a hint of guilt in her beautiful eyes at this moment. Zhou Waner on the side also coughed lightly. She didn't expect that their plan would be discovered like this. Su Ming looked at them and shook his head. He didn't care what they wanted to do because he had more important things to do with them at the moment. In that case, as the Crown Prince's personal guards, you 2 should go to greet him. I now order you to board the Tianyuan flying boat and take the Crown Prince and his family home. After he finished speaking, there was some disbelief in Wang Yuxuan and Zhou Waner's beautiful eyes, as if they had been hit by a great opportunity, and they were immediately overjoyed. "Receive." Wang Yuxuan made a gesture to him, then took Zhou Waner and left quickly without looking back. And behind them, there was a small tail following closely. Su Ming immediately recognized the familiar figure, laughed for a moment, and shook his head. Seeing this, someone asked in confusion, does the Prime Minister trust these women so much? They're the Crown Prince's people. If anything happens to them, it will be a big trouble. It's precisely because they're the Prince's people that we let them go to greet him. These women are of extraordinary status, so how could they not have someone to protect them? No problem, let them go. Su Ming said indifferently. He saw clearly that anything related to the prince was extremely important in this divine dynasty. After hearing this, the minister fell silent. You let them go, so there must be other reasons. At this time, Wang Xiong beside Su Ming whispered. Su Ming nodded slightly, and then slowly said, the crown prince and the others have been fighting in Xinzong for so long, they must be exhausted. This place is quite far from Zhongshenzhou. We can't let them both suffer so much when they return. It's just right to take a flying boat over there and let them rest. Your Majesty is so busy that it's normal for him not to have considered this. But ministers like us cannot ignore it. After he finished speaking, Wang Xiong exclaimed in admiration and said, This, what you said does make sense. No wonder you are the Prime Minister. At the same time, in the back mountain of the Imperial Palace at Tianyuan Academy, two extremely powerful auras burst out and then fled towards the sky. And in an inconspicuous courtyard in the Divine Dynasty, the woman had just taken her daughter home when she saw her husband with a serious look on his face. She immediately realized something was wrong. She said softly to her daughter, Yaya, go play outside for a while. Your dad and I will clean the room, okay? After hearing this, Yaya's eyes curved and she said in a baby voice, Okay. Then, the two ponytails swung out of their sight. Seeing this, the woman asked, What happened? The middle-aged man took out a token with an expressionless face. The word Tianyuan was clearly written on it. He handed the token to the woman. After reading it, the woman's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She said in a cold voice, How dare someone take the initiative to kill the young master? Yeah, I don't know who this blood god cult is. The middle-aged man smiled and took out the box wrapped in black cloth hidden under the bed. Then he opened the box, and two daggers with cold, gleaming light appeared in his sight, one engraved with jade face, and the other engraved with Ashura. If anyone recognized them, they would surely find that these two daggers are the weapons used by the once world-famous killer Do Jade-Face Shura. Those two people assassinated many saints from major forces back then. Many forces wanted to kill them, but none of them succeeded. Afterwards, the two of them disappeared completely, as if they had evaporated from the face of the earth. Unexpectedly, they have now retreated into the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. What was even more unexpected was that these two people were actually killers trained by Tianyuan Mansion. At this moment, the couple, like a pair of partners who had worked together for a long time, tacitly took out the dagger and hid it on their bodies. Looks like I have to ask Mu Lao to take care of Yaya again. Yumian said helplessly and put on the black robe. He's retired now and has a lot of free time, so I'm thinking of giving him something to do, haha. Shura laughed and straightened his sleeves. Then the two of them looked at each other and appeared in the void, bursting out with a terrifying power, turning into two streams of light and disappearing. Chapter 353. Little girl, this is not a good thing to say, 2 in 1 for 1,000 words. I can finally go home. Seeing this familiar boundary sea, Lu Daju was excited. Yeah, I can finally leave. These past 2 months have been so torturous. Even Li Qixin couldn't help but sigh when he saw the scene before him. But soon, he looked at some missing positions among the crowd, with a hint of loneliness in his eyes. It's a pity for those brothers buried in the immortal treasure. As soon as these words were spoken, Wu Jian in the crowd trembled suddenly, and then his eyes turned red. To this day, he still hasn't forgotten Hong Chun, who died in front of him that day. For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely depressing. Nangong Chen shook his head. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but sigh softly. People have joys and sorrows, separations and reunions. The moon waxes and wanes. It's impossible to have everything at once. Although he didn't know who died, he still felt inexplicably emotional. Su Li, who was also somewhat bewildered, leaned towards Nangong Chen after hearing this, and asked in a low voice, Hey, Nangong Chen, who died? So much time has passed that she almost forgot who came in, and she is also a little face-blind. During the first round of trials, I was always with Nangong Chen, so I had no idea what was happening over there. When Nangong Chen heard this, his brows furrowed in surprise. He thought Su Li was shocked by his talent. So she spoke, but he didn't expect that she would ask him who died. He was silent for a moment before the corner of his mouth twitched. Actually, I don't know either. I was just expressing my feelings. After saying that, Su Li rolled her eyes at him. Seeing that you looked so involved, she thought you knew it. On the side, Chi Yao was wearing a red shirt and laughing so hard that her body was shaking. She didn't expect that these two people were so funny. She had just returned to Su Li and saw such a funny scene. What did she miss in these diaries? Thinking of this, Chi Yao felt a little resentful towards Ji Feng. She had promised not to cause any trouble in the immortal treasure, but he didn't even let her in. Next time they met, she would definitely give him a beating. Far beyond the starry sky, Ji-Feng was gnawing on a big chicken leg. Suddenly he shivered and felt a chill on his back. Oh my god, who is thinking about me again? Ji-Feng muttered something and suddenly felt that the braised chicken leg in his hand was no longer fragrant. The return passage has been opened. Within one stick of incense, all of you must leave. If you are delayed, you can stay in the immortal treasure. In the sea of boundaries, Xingqian waved his hand, opened the 10 starry sky channels, and said lightly. After he finished speaking, the 2 remaining geniuses in the sea area took action first and left without looking back. Following closely behind was the Buddhist disciple, who also seemed to have something to hide. He didn't want to stay here for a moment and quickly escaped into the passage. If someone observed carefully, they would definitely find that the Buddhist disciple's face was as black as pig liver, and he looked very aggrieved. As for the reason why he felt aggrieved, it was actually very simple. Before he came here, he thought that this Xianzong was just a stepping stone for him, and his twin bodies would definitely become the most dazzling geniuses in Xianzong. However, he did not expect that a monster like Nangong Chen would appear, which directly caused his Taoist faith to collapse. He never wanted to see the other person again, never wanted to see the other person's face again. Seeing them leaving one after another, Li Qishan also spoke to everyone. Let's go. The dead cannot be resurrected. We still have to look forward. At least we are still alive. Yes, Overlord is right. At least we are all alive. Jiang Che also nodded and said. Suddenly, the oppressive atmosphere became much more relaxed. Xiong even grinned foolishly and said, yeah, I was only breathing last time, but I was able to save you. After saying that, he looked at Nangong Chen and Lu Dezhu with gratitude on his face. These 2 were his saviors, and among them, he wanted to thank Nangong Chen the most. He knew that if the other party had not come to help, even if he had Lu Dezhu's magic weapon, he would only die later, and Saint Chu and the others would also die there in the end. So, in the end, it was the other party's timely arrival that saved everything. As soon as these words were spoken, Chu Yin, Wang Teng, Chao Li and others looked reminiscent, and their thoughts seemed to have returned to that day. When they were first surrounded by Wan Tiansheng, Nangong Chen came like a god from heaven to save them from danger and turn the tide. However, this is not the end yet. The Red Heart Dragon formation behind them was about to shock and kill them, but at the critical moment, the opponent also broke the formation. It could be said that Nangong Chen saved them twice. Soon, Xiongda looked at Nangong Chen and took a deep breath. Brother Nangong, I, Xiongda, am just a warrior, not very educated. I don't know what words to use to thank you. If you don't mind me, and you need me in the future, just tell me. Even if it costs me my life, I will come. Nangong Chen didn't agree, just nodded slightly, but took a closer look at the burly and honest young man in front of him. He didn't expect him to be so loyal and righteous. He didn't think too much that day. He was simply annoyed with the giant from the wild realm. Moreover, he was blocking his way to the ancient immortal ruins. There was no reason not to take action. As for them, they just happened to help. Seeing Nangong Chen agreed, Xiongda smiled foolishly and looked silly. Seeing him like this, Nangong Chen seemed to remember something, and the corners of his mouth raised, with a somewhat intriguing smile. No, what did he just call himself? Big Bear? This familiar name reminded him of a cartoon he had watched in his previous life. But Elder Xiong knows how to name things. He looks like Xiong Air, but he named him Xiongda. Is this what they call contrast? Seeing Nangong Chen suddenly smile, Xiongda was a little confused and scratched his face. Huh, I remember there was nothing on my face. Nangong Chen shook his head and said nothing. Seeing the other party's expression, he knew that the other party wouldn't understand even if he said anything. Soon, another powerful voice rang out. Me too. If you need me, Chao Li, please feel free to call me. Chao Li patted his chest, his eyes flashing, and said seriously. After Wang Teng remained silent for a while, he also spoke, stuttering. His tone sounded quite unsure, as if he had done something wrong. Me too. If you have any problems in the future, you can come to me. Also, last time I was blind and accidentally offended you. It was my fault. I apologize. After he finished speaking, Wang Teng lowered his head, not daring to look directly at the other person, like a child who had done something wrong. After hearing this, everyone was shocked and didn't know how to describe each other for a moment. Damn, you dared to attack this pervert. Wang Teng, are you so awesome? However, what surprised them even more was that Wang Teng was not dead after attacking Nangong Chen, and was able to come to the immortal treasure alive and well. This was the most incredible thing. At this moment, Wang Teng received the admiring gazes of Li Qishan and others. At the same time, they were also extremely curious about what had happened. Su Li's beautiful eyes also flashed. She quietly moved closer and looked straight at Nangong Chen. Her eyes were almost full of curiosity. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten it. It doesn't matter. No one is perfect. It's a blessing to admit your mistakes and correct them. Under countless pairs of curious eyes, Nangong Chen just yawned, waved his hand, and said casually. After he finished speaking, everyone looked regretful and shook their heads, including Su Li. She was really curious about how someone could survive after attacking Nangong Chen. That guy's cruelty can be seen from the Great Zhou Dynasty to the present. Wang Tung breathed a sigh of relief, but there was also a hint of loneliness in his eyes. Didn't I expect that my actions were really insignificant in his eyes? Soon, it was the turn of several others to speak. Ximeng's beautiful eyes flickered, her purple hair cascading down. She came close to Nangong Chen, her lips curled up slightly. Young master, you saved me twice. I'm all alone and have no way to repay you. I can only. However, before Ximeng could finish her words, a bone-chilling chill erupted from nowhere. Nangong Chen's eyelids twitched, and he tried to remain calm and coughed lightly. Little girl, this is not something you can talk about. The other people present also looked at this side, excitedly, with a look of delighted delight on their faces, even though they were almost frozen into ice sculptures. Hee, if you have something to entrust to me in the future, I will definitely do my best. Sister Su, there's no need to be so nervous. Soon, Ximeng stuck out her tongue slightly, blinked her beautiful eyes, and looked at Su Li. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone showed regretful eyes. They had thought they could see some exciting plot. Nangong Chen also breathed a sigh of relief at this time and glanced at Su Li. Su Li's pretty face had already become mature. She didn't dare to look at others and whispered, "How could I be nervous? Who cares about him?" At this moment, the chill has subsided. When everyone heard this, they understood and smiled without saying anything. The thanks continued, and soon it was Chu Yan's turn. Chu Yan was silent for a while before she said, "I'm the same as them. If you need help, I'll help you." After hearing this, Nangong Chen glanced at them with a flickering look in his eyes. He did have a plan, and he might actually need them in the future. After all, he couldn't just do it alone to revive the Shinxian sect. But it's too early now, and they can't help even if I tell them. Okay, I'll remember that. I'll come to you guys if I have any problems next time. After thinking about it, Nangong Chen smiled and thought that he would not refuse this favor. After seeing Nangong Chen accept it, several people nodded and smiled. At this moment, Lu Dezhu came up to Nangong Chen, groping for something like a thief. After fumbling for a long time, he pulled out a purple card from somewhere and handed it respectfully to Nangong Chen. "This is a small token of my appreciation. I hope you will accept it, Brother Nangong. Of course, if you need me for anything in the future, I, Dezhu, will do my best to help you." Nangong Chen took it and looked at the exquisite purple card, suddenly feeling confused. After seeing it clearly, everyone was horrified. Fuck, rumor has it there are only 2 Tianbao Pavilion purple gold cards in the world. Li Muxiu exclaimed, but seeing that Nangong Chen was still a little confused, he continued to explain. Tianbao Pavilion has a special grading system to receive different guests. From low to high, there are 5 grades: white, green, blue, yellow, and red. Each grade unlocks completely different services and discounts. It's like the Qin cards that we, the descendants of this family, have. We can only buy things in ordinary areas, and we only get a 10% discount. As for the highest level red card, it's something very few people in Xintian territory possess. Not even my father has one. I once saw a hidden old monster with a red card. The service he provided was truly unforgettable. As for the purple gold card, I've also heard about it from the elders in my clan. It's a card that surpasses all other cards, and no one knows of its privileges. There are only 2 in the entire Xintian domain. It's said that it was established by the first pavilion master. I didn't expect to see it today. It's truly a real eye-opener. As soon as the words fell, everyone looked at the purple gold card in Nangong Chen's hand with extremely fiery eyes. Nangong Chen didn't expect that this little fat guy was so generous and actually gave him such an awesome thing. However, thinking that this was a thank you gift for saving his life, he accepted it very calmly. If he didn't save the little fat boy, his purple gold card would be wasted, and he would be in trouble. Then, Brother Nangong, if I get beaten up in the future, can I tell you my name? After seeing Nangong Chen accept it, Lu Dezhu was overjoyed and then said cautiously, "If I can get hold of this powerful person, I can walk around freely in Xintian territory." Nangong Chen was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that this kid would come up with this idea. He was quite good at planning, but it's just a name. If the other person is really beaten when he goes out, if he really reports it, others will probably think he is a fool and beat him anyway. It has nothing to do with him anyway. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen nodded slightly yes. Lu Dezhu finally felt relieved after hearing this and said sincerely, "Don't worry, big brother. I will definitely pay the tribute on time in the future. No, I will pay the protection fee." As soon as these words were spoken, Nangong Chen's eyes lit up instantly. He looked at Lu Dazhu in front of him, as if he was looking at a rich money tree. Why didn't you tell me earlier? So this is the case. He decided that if anyone touches his money tree in the future, he would have trouble with him. After Chu Yin and his group expressed their gratitude, several people on the other side also became eager to come to Nangong Chen to express their gratitude. After all, they have not forgotten who killed so many of their competitors in the first round, allowing them to advance to the second round of the battlefield of heaven and earth. This kindness must never be forgotten. First, the two Li brothers expressed their sincere gratitude. They have always valued friendship and loyalty. The other party has done so much for them. If Nangong Chen had not stopped them, they would have almost performed a grand ceremony. There is no way. It is the grace of enlightenment and the grace of revenge. A few words cannot express their gratitude. It is worth mentioning that Jiang Che from the Jiang family also came over. Just like Wang Tong before, he was hesitant at first and then apologized with a guilty look on his face. This also made everyone open their eyes wide, sighing that Jiang Che and Wang Tong are simply two talented people. After seeing this, Wang Tong's expression relaxed a lot. He didn't expect that the other party had attacked Nangong Chen before. Similarly, Nangong Chen didn't remember the other party either. This suddenly gave him some comfort. It turned out that he was not the only one being treated specially. Chapter 354. The powerful gathered together, the wild people. Soon, the time of an incense stick was about to pass, and at this last moment, several beautiful female voices were heard from the next area. Sir, you must remember me. We'll meet again in 3,000 Dao provinces. The golden-haired fox Yao Yao shouted at Nangong Chen and waved at him. Her face was full of reluctance, and her almond-shaped eyes seemed to want to remember Nangong Chen's face deeply in her heart. Fox Spirit. When Su Li saw this scene, he snorted coldly in annoyance. You're about to leave, but you're still not behaving yourself. Seeing this, Nangong Chen could only pretend not to see it. Soon, Fox Yao Yao left. Just when he breathed a sigh of relief, another sound came from the burial heaven realm. Before Xian Xiangling left, she looked at Nangong Chen seriously and said, Man, I will try my best to save up 2,000 immortal crystals to buy you a one-time gift. Wait for me. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole audience fell silent. Everyone widened their eyes, looked at Nangong Chen, then looked at the little lowly from the God clan, their eyes wandering and their faces full of shock. 2,000 immortal crystals, to buy you once? No, Brother Nangong is so extravagant that he doesn't even let little girls go. No, it's so expensive. 2,000 immortal crystals, why not go and rob them? Soon the icy chill swept back. Su Li's brows were frosty as she stared at Nangong Chen, pointed her sword at him, and said word by word, You'd better tell me the truth. Not only is he flirting with that slutty vixen, he's even having an affair with this undeveloped girl from the God clan. Listen to my explanation. The 2,000 immortal crystals she mentioned are for one training session. Nangong Chen's face was filled with black lines, and he wished he could go back to that time and shut his mouth tightly. He is such a bad mouth. Why do you have to go up and talk to that little kid who hasn't even grown all his hair yet? Su Li snorted coldly and gave him a look. Do you think I believe it? Just as the battle was about to ignite, Shiming spoke again, weakly saying, 2,000 a time is too expensive. Can we get a discount if we're acquaintances? As soon as these words were spoken, Su Li was completely ignited. Chu City. In the void, Chu Shanha looked at everything that was in order, but he always had an ominous premonition in his heart. At his feet, the streets and alleys were crowded with people and traffic, and countless cultivators were looking forward to seeing the geniuses who had returned from the immortal treasure. At this moment, the city of Chu has been completely closed, with only people leaving but not entering. The daily patrol teams have also grown a lot. They have frequently appeared on the streets in recent days, checking every household for any suspicious people. If there is one, he will be thrown into prison directly and will not be released until all the geniuses have returned. It can only be said that now that it has come to this point, we would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. And today is the most important day. In a while, the geniuses who have been famous in Xintian domain for the past month will be coming back. Is the 7-star formation correct? Chu Shanha suddenly said, looking at the elder beside him. After hearing this, the elder hesitated for a moment before speaking. In previous years, the 7-star formation was managed by other elders. This year, Elder Chu Ruchuan said he would take full responsibility and remove the previous elders. Chu Shanha frowned slightly. Although Chu Ruchuan was a quasi-saint, why did she remove the others? At the same time, he felt a surge of uneasiness in his heart. Seeing that the genius was about to return, he didn't dare to go directly to the ancestral land to check it out, for fear of wasting time. I could only stay where I was and pray that nothing would happen. The incense stick is about to expire, and the 7-star formation is about to be activated. As time went on, strong men from various forces took their positions one after another. The man from the Chu family who was beating drums and gongs in the center of Chu City, upon seeing the many powerful men coming, also spoke loudly. Congratulations to Li Sanhai, the ancestor of the Li family, for coming to Chu City. Congratulations to Tianjin Patriarch Chunsong for coming to Chu City. Congratulations to Heavenly Sword Saint Zhao Lei for coming to Chu City. At this moment, streams of light appeared one after another in the sky. In the void, the figures of powerful forces gradually appeared. The people in Chu City below were stunned and talked about it. This seems to be the first time I've seen so many powerful people in Chu City. Yes, it is indeed the first time, and it is unprecedented. Everyone, please watch and cherish it. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of this monstrous being with double pupils and the immortal treasure, we might not even see these forces coming. Hey, what do you think? If a few fools come and try to kill the geniuses returning from the immortal treasure, wouldn't that be interesting? Ha ha! You must be joking. How is this possible? Don't you know that the entrance and exit of Chu City has been tightly guarded recently? Not even a mouse can get in, let alone those who have ulterior motives. Besides, there are so many powerful people in this void. I'm afraid that even if I come here, I will have to leave my life behind. That's hard to say. In some shops in Chu City, there was a constant stream of people at this time. Countless cultivators came from other places, all to see the legendary immortal genius. Nangong Chen, who is #1 in the immortal collection, #1 in the myriad worlds list, and the creator of the 9-star qualification, was the focus of discussion among the group of people. Even the local storytellers would talk about it to outsiders whenever they came, and they never got tired of it. Speaking of that, last time, the Double Pupil man and the Sioux goddess had just entered the first round of trials. Everyone else was frantically harvesting monster points and competing for rankings, fighting each other fiercely. What do you think happened to these two? The storyteller stood on the table, waving a handheld fan, describing the scene vividly, and suddenly paused. The monks around were also listening with fascination. When the storyteller suddenly paused, they became anxious and spoke quickly. What's the matter, sir? Tell me now. You just want money, right? I'll give it to you. Yeah. Tell us now. Don't keep us in suspense. What on earth did that person with double pupils and goddessu do? Seeing their eager eyes, the storyteller smiled and continued. Who would have thought that those two were actually playing around in the immortal treasure? You heard right. They were playing around. After he finished speaking, everyone looked a little bit incredulous. Yuan, how is that possible? Then how did he become the #1 in the immortal treasure? The storyteller shook his head, slowly took out an iron bowl from behind his back, walked down from the wooden table, and said with a smile, "Don't worry. If you want to know what happens next, please support me." When everyone saw this, they all threw small pieces of spirit stones into the bowl. Some of the wealthy young men even threw in a lot of spirit stones at once. Seeing this, the storyteller laughed so hard that he could hardly close his mouth. The young man at a table in the distance was also extremely jealous when he saw this, and said to the quiet woman beside him, "Sister, I've almost memorized it by heart. How can he still make money?" After hearing this, Qing Yu smiled and then shook his head. Haven't you seen how many cultivators have come from other places these days? Some have listened, and naturally some haven't. He has his audience. It's normal. Besides, they're helping you spread the word, so they deserve to make money. Why are you jealous? Upon hearing this, Qing Fan lowered his head slightly, and then reluctantly accepted it. "Sister, I found out. What did you find? I noticed that you've been laughing more often recently. Is it because the young master is coming back?" After saying that, Qing Yu knocked his head, raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and said jokingly, "Look at you, you don't practice all day long. What are you thinking about?" Qing Fan said nothing and turned his head to look elsewhere. Suddenly, he seemed to see something and his eyes widened. In the direction of his sight, a group of pedestrians in strange clothes were walking towards here, and, coincidentally, they were sitting next to them. As soon as he sat down, many people present noticed him and gave him strange looks. This outfit, could it be that this person is from the wilderness? It seems to be true when you put it that way, but aren't people from the wilderness said to be unable to leave the world? Why did you come here? Forget it, let's not look at them. They have a strong aura, and it's obvious that there are strong people among them. People in the wilderness are always barbaric, so we should avoid causing trouble. After seeing this, Qing Fan couldn't help but mutter, "People from the wilderness." The book records that the so-called wilderness is the area between the extreme west and the central divine land. It is a place where monsters and beasts run rampant. The population is sparse, and dangers are lurking on all sides. Few cultivators dare to set foot here unless they have to. However, in that area, there lived a group of humans who had lived there for generations. They made a living by hunting monsters and believed in physical training. They called themselves the people of the wilderness. However, few people from the wilderness come out to contact the cultivators from the three states. They have always been isolated from the world, very resistant to coming out, and very xenophobic, and have had conflicts with many cultivators. Therefore, the reputation of the people from the wilderness is not very good in Xintian realm. Similarly, the reputation of the cultivators from the central plains in the wilderness is also very bad. The two sides can be said to be like water and fire. After hearing this, Qingyu also looked up with some curiosity. There were 4 people in the group. Leading the group was a one-armed old man with a tiger skin draped over his right shoulder. Side by side with him was a middle-aged man in a purple robe. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle, and he had a long braid tied behind his back. The aura he exuded was quite astonishing. Behind them was a young man and woman. "Father, I heard from those people along the way that the projection we saw that day seemed to be real. Could it be that we misunderstood?" The girl took a sip of tea cautiously and spoke. She has a pure face, wears a 3-color horse-face skirt, has fair skin, a high ponytail, and exquisite jade bracelets on her ankles and wrists. Her every move is full of exotic charm. This also made many men present have a flash of surprise in their eyes after seeing it. The girl's name is Lan Xian. She is the daughter of the patriarch of the Wuling clan. She has 7th grade talent, and at the age of 25, she has already reached the early stage of great power. When the words fell, the tall, dark-skinned young man beside him sneered and said, "Little sister, you don't understand this, do you? The Central Plains cultivators are the best at disguising themselves. Maybe they saw us dressed like this and told us this on purpose. Do you really think there are such geniuses in the world who can kill quasi-saints like a divine king?" His name is Lan Jia. He is the eldest son of the Wuling clan, one of the 4 major clans in the wilderness. He is also the strongest genius of the Wuling clan in this generation. With 7th grade talent, at the age of 80, he has already reached the late stage of the powerful realm. After hearing this, the middle-aged man also nodded and said, "Your brother is right. The monks in the Central Plains have always been cunning and treacherous. This kind of thing is not impossible. The ultimate goal of my visit this time is to dispel your grandfather's concerns and let the other lineage know that we, the Wuling clan, don't need outside help and can still perform brilliantly in a wilderness competition." "Right, old man." After saying that, he looked at the one-armed old man who remained silent. The one-armed old man was silent for a moment, then spoke out. "Don't you know that the immortal treasures they're talking about are all part of the Tianjiao trial that has been held regularly in this area for thousands of years? How can you lie about such an important matter? Alas, you are too narrow-minded, unwilling to believe the facts, and too self-righteous. No wonder our Wuling tribe has declined to this day, and even lost that thing in the wilderness competition." After these words were spoken, the faces of both the father and son became a little stiff. As the current patriarch of the Wuling tribe, that middle-aged man has always had that incident as a thorn in his heart. Doesn't he know that the other party is provoking him? Lan Linchuan immediately slammed the table, his eyes filled with anger, and he gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Dad, are you blaming us for not inviting those cunning and treacherous Central Plains cultivators just because the other 3 great families hired external aid and we didn't? And that's why we lost?" The one-armed old man said nothing, just looked at him calmly. "Old man, you don't trust us, and you don't want to trust me? I'm already in the late quasi-sage stage. What can the other 3 great families do to defeat me in this wilderness competition?" Seeing that everyone present was looking at him, Lan Linchuan clenched his hands, suppressed the anger in his heart, and said in a deep voice. When Lan Xian saw this, she raised her hand as if she wanted to say something to comfort the old man, but was stopped by the one-armed old man's look. "Do you still remember the agreement you made this time?" The one-armed old man did not answer him directly, but spoke lightly. "I remember, of course I remember. Wasn't it just to verify whether that Central Plains genius was as powerful as I saw in the projection that day?" Lan Linchuan heard this, and instead of getting angry, he smiled and continued. "From what I can see, you, Lan Mo, have become quite old and confused. You actually believed with those people in the clan that the strength of the young man in the projection was real, and not a trick of that Central Plains cultivator. How could there be a genius in this world who is already several dozen years old and has reached the divine king realm? Even more so, how could there be a genius who can fight a quasi-saint at the level of a divine king? The gap between them is something only a quasi-saint would understand. It's like an insurmountable chasm. Didn't those Central Plains cultivators say that those geniuses would be coming out soon? Open your eyes and see if that guy is really as amazing as he appears in the projection. If there really is such a god, then I, Lan Linchuan, will not say a word." In this wilderness competition, you can freely invite foreigners from the 3 states. Of course, if all that is false, then in this wilderness competition, everything will be up to me. After saying that, Lan Linchuan looked up at the sky with a confident look on his face, just waiting to slap him in the face. Chapter 355 The Blood God Cult arrives and suffers a crushing defeat. After hearing this, Lan Mo shook his head, with some disappointment in his eyes. He had never thought that he would have such a son, who was so stubborn and did not consider the opinions of his clan members at all. Seeing the 2 people quarreling again, Lan Xian sighed helplessly. Her bright eyes showed a little tiredness. She didn't know how many times she had heard this along the way. She actually hoped that her grandfather could win this time and invite a foreign aide to help them win the wilderness competition. Their Wuling tribe really couldn't lose again. The young man she had caught a fleeting glimpse of that day in the projection shouldn't disappoint her. Thinking of this, a figure in snow-white clothes appeared in her mind. At this moment in the void, clan leader, if we count the saint behind the one with double pupils, then we have 4 saints present in Chu City this time. Beside Chu Shanhe, an elder of the clan was reporting to him with great excitement. 4 saints came to Chu City. This has never happened before. With them around, anyone who dares to cause trouble when the genius of Xianzong returns will probably lose his life. After hearing this, Chu Shanhe felt relieved. The 4 saints also relieved a lot of pressure on their Chu family. If someone really wanted to kill the genius, they would have to consider whether they could withstand it. Where's the quasi-saint? Chu Shanhe continued to ask questions. As for the quasi-saints, according to statistics, there should be 7. So, this means there are 4 saints and 7 quasi-saints in Chu City this time. Add to that the 7-star formation, and we're infallible. Chu Shanhe muttered to himself. At the same time, Chu Shanhe looked at the sky and kept counting down in his heart. His eyes lit up when he saw a vortex slowly expanding in the void. The vortex appears, and the genius returns. This also means that before long, perhaps half an hour or an hour, all the geniuses will come out of the chaos. Of course, during this period of time, you can already start the 7-star formation. At this moment, Chu Shanhe coughed lightly and said loudly, "Ring the celestial bell, summon the 7-star formation, and welcome the return of the immortal treasure." Knock knock. As soon as he finished speaking, the bell that resounded throughout the world rang again. When the strong men present saw this, they all smiled. They have all experienced this countless times, so naturally they all know that their genius will be back soon. Similarly, the monks below were also extremely excited, as if their spirits were boiling. Their hero is finally coming back. However, after a few breaths, the 7-star formation still did not activate. For a moment, the strong man in the void showed a look of confusion. Could it be that the 7-star formation was postponed? But Chu Shanhe was sweating profusely at this moment, and his body was trembling slightly. How could the 7-star formation, which has been in charge of the Chu family for generations, be delayed? How could it be unpunctual? If the 7-star formation is really too late, then something must have happened. Sure enough, just as he finished this thought, a laugh rang out from heaven and earth. Ha ha ha! Unfortunately, your 7-star formation is gone. In the void, more than a dozen black-robed figures appeared one after another. Without exception, there was a red moon pattern engraved in the center of their black robes. The person who just spoke was the man in the red blood moon robe who was leading the group. At this moment, the terrifying pressure erupted from the dozen or so figures, sweeping across the entire world, making it impossible for everyone to raise their heads. Blood God cult. Someone present reacted, and their pupils suddenly shrank. None of them had expected that on the day when the genius from the immortal hidden realm returned, someone would actually choose to ambush and kill the genius. And it was the legendary and dreaded Blood God cult. The other party is obviously well prepared with this posture. Can their strong men withstand it? For a moment, everyone on the street looked panicked, not knowing what to do. The powerful men from various sects in the void also changed their expressions, frowned, and looked extremely solemn. 4 saints, 8 quasi-saints, and 1 whose cultivation level is unknown. Zhao Lei said in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on the only figure in the red robe. Not being able to see the other person's cultivation level means that the other person's strength is far beyond your understanding, which is the most dangerous thing. On the other side, Chu Shanhe understood wrongly and breathed a sigh of relief. If there are 4 saints and 8 quasi-saints, it would not be as difficult as imagined and could be handled. Thinking of this, Chu Shanhe couldn't help but harden his temper, his eyes widening in anger as he said in a cold voice, "You, the Blood God cult, are truly audacious. You destroyed our Chu family's 7-star formation. Do you intend to become an enemy of the Chu family?" After hearing that the 7-star formation was really destroyed, he broke out in a cold sweat, realizing the seriousness of the matter. But fortunately, it seemed that the situation could still be salvaged. If we can force these lunatics to retreat, we can also minimize the losses. As soon as he finished speaking, a sneer was heard. Who do you think your Chu family is? Are you worthy enough to be treated as an enemy? Inside the blood god cult, a figure slowly opened his hood, revealing a face that was extremely familiar to everyone. It's you. Chu Shanha was a little dazed. After he came to his senses, he clenched his fists, and his breathing became a little rapid. This person was none other than Wen Xiaosheng, who had previously held a secret meeting in their Chu family. It was the other party who sent Luan Xin and Liang Gui, two of the 4 leaders of the blood god sect, into the immortal treasure, causing heavy losses. If it weren't for the monstrous person with double pupils who saved the world this time, it is hard to imagine whether anyone in their Xintian domain would come back alive. This is enough to show that the person in front of us is extremely sinful. Similarly, the pupils of other powerful people present at this moment also shrank slightly. They had not expected that such a person would sneak into the meeting that day. Why, my old friend, are you excited to see me? Moyu smiled playfully. Oh, I forgot to tell you, your Chu family's 7-star formation wasn't destroyed by us, but by someone from your Chu family. Don't put the blame on us. As soon as he finished speaking, countless eyes focused on Chu Shanha. The 7-star formation, which had never had any problems in thousands of years, had to go wrong at this very moment. Could it be that there really was a traitor within the Chu family? Chu Shanha's old face flushed red, and he realized the importance of the matter and angrily shouted, "Who is your old friend? You beast, you are slandering me. How could anyone from our Chu family destroy the 7-star formation? Only the blood god cult can use such a crude attempt to sow discord. Why are you so anxious? Why don't you go ask Chu Ruchuan from your Chu family?" Moyu was calm and shook his head. After he finished speaking, Chu Shanha was shocked and suddenly recalled what the elder had just said. How did the other party know that Chu Ruchuan was in full control of the 7-star formation in the ancestral land this time? Could it be that Chu Ruchuan, idiot? Chu Shanha suddenly figured something out and cursed in his heart. At the same time, in the Chu family's ancestral land, Chu Ruchuan's limbs were broken and he was nailed to the wall. He was bleeding and his face was pale. He looked ahead with a look of panic. She never imagined that the person she regarded as her biggest enemy was actually Fun Dao, the palace master of the Sun God Palace. At this moment, Fun Dao had a cold expression on his face as he kept approaching, holding a red sword in his hand. Just when everyone thought Fun Dao would take action, he seemed to have thought of something, stopped, and gave a playful smile. "Forget it. I won't kill you. If all those immortal treasures are killed this time, those sects and your Chu family will know that it was you who destroyed the 7-star formation. TSK, 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 TSK. I wonder how they will react. I'm afraid that anger will make you unable to die, even if you want to." Chu Ruchuan's face turned extremely pale, her mind went blank, and then she pleaded frantically, "Kill me, please, kill me, please." But there was no one in front of her, only the heart-wrenching sound echoing in the empty ancestral land. Beside him, corpses of his tribesmen, young and old, were scattered all over the ground. "Also, I really don't like you, Tone. I am Mayo, one of the 4 masters of the blood god cult, not the beast you are calling me." In the void, Moyu suddenly attacked, and a demonic intent burst out, pressing towards Chu Shanha like a tidal wave. In an instant, Chu Shanha's pupils shrank, and then sweat poured down his face. His legs went weak, and he struggled to hold on. He didn't expect that Wen Xiaosheng was actually Moyu, one of the 4 leaders of the blood god sect. Swish! A flash of sword light passed by, cutting through the evil intent. Suddenly, Chu Shanha felt the suffocating pressure dissipate. He gasped for breath and felt a sense of fear in his heart. It is hard to imagine that if the other party had gone on a killing spree in the Chu family that time, among the people present, Li Songhai would probably be the only one who could resist. Not far away, Zhao Lei slowly sheathed his sword, looked at the red-robed envoy, and said solemnly, "I'll deal with the red robe. The 3 of you should be able to hold off the 4 saints." Li Songhai laughed and came in front of him. "Zhao family kid, you're still showing off in front of me. My old bones are still strong. Go away. I will deal with the red robe." After saying that, Li Songhai put away his smile, his cloudy eyes gradually became clear, and he burst out with the aura of a peaked saint, charging towards the red-robed envoy. Far away, the red-robed envoy sneered, his eyes gleaming with disdain. He shook his head and said to the blood god cult, "Attack now. Strike a decisive battle quickly. Don't delay until their reinforcements arrive." "Yes," the 4 and other teachers said in unison. At this moment, the killing technique roared out. "The holy war begins." Luotian formation rise. Chen Song's eyes flashed with brilliance. He pinched the formation formula with his left hand and held the formation plate with his right hand. As soon as he finished speaking, A golden barrier enveloped the entire void, preventing the aftermath of the battle from spreading out. This also made the frightened people of Chu City below breathe a sigh of relief. Otherwise, just based on today's holy war, who knows how many people in the entire Chu City will die. Zhu Ying from their holy land is still down there. In an instant, Chen Song's face turned pale and his energy was exhausted. This formation that covered the entire city was too exhausting for him. Moreover, if he had not been prepared in the past few days and had not carved the center of the formation in Chu City, there would probably be heavy casualties today. On the other side, Chu Shana also showed gratitude and said, "On behalf of the millions of cultivators in Chu City, I thank the heavenly formation ancestor for setting up the formation." Chen Song waved his hands, ignoring his superficial efforts, his expression still extremely solemn. The formation is secondary. The outcome of the holy war is the primary one. If we lose today, then everything we have done will be in vain. By then, according to the blood god cult's practice, not only will the returning geniuses die here, but the tens of millions of cultivators in Chu City will also be slaughtered. At this moment, the battlefield was divided into two parts in the void. One part is the battle between the old sect leader, Elder Xiong, Ning Rong, and others in the blood god cult, while the other part is the battle between the saints and the higher heaven. Elder Xiong was covered in blood, his shirt torn to pieces. Facing the attack of the two quasi-saints of the blood god cult, he was beaten back step by step. Since they only had 7 quasi-saints, while the other side had 8, Elder Xiong, who was the strongest quasi-saint on their side, naturally had 2 opponents. "Come and help me. I can't hold on any longer." Elder Xiong used his magical powers, his muscles bulged, and his hands clenched into fists. He first knocked a quasi-saint of the blood god sect who was rushing towards him away with one punch, and then was tied up by chains that suddenly appeared, unable to move. For a moment, his face turned extremely red, and he frantically called for help. "Haha, I finally caught him, kill him quickly." Behind him, the short quasi-saint of the blood god cult showed excitement. He held the black lacquered chain in his hand and just squeezed it hard, causing the bear elder to howl loudly. The other quasi-saint of the blood god cult was a little dazed by the punch. After hearing it, he gradually reacted. With cold eyes, he stood up, picked up the axe, and was about to chop it down. Elder Xiong had a look of despair on his face. Under a ray of light, the cold light of death raged across his face. Looking at the entire battlefield, no one had a free hand to help him, and he didn't even have a chance to escape. At this critical moment, the old sect leader sent out a unicorn-like gale and shouted, blowing the man who cast the chain away. "I'm here to help you." Elder Xiong was able to escape, but the next second, the old sect leader was blown away by the quasi-saint who was chasing him, and turned into a bloody arc and fell into his arms. The two of them stared at each other. The two quasi-saints of the blood god sect, after a brief moment of daze, had murderous intent in their eyes, vowing to completely wipe out the two men on the spot. Soon, the two sides fought again. Where are the reinforcements? Why haven't they arrived yet? Elder Xiong endured the severe pain and once again resisted the attacks of the 3 people, then said breathlessly, "We've already sent people on their way, but the sects of the major forces are quite a distance away, so it'll take at least half a day." The old sect leader responded with a pale complexion, and the Qilin pattern on his face became increasingly dim, and it was obvious that he was about to run out of strength. "Long time." Elder Xiong's face darkened, and his eyes grew more desperate. In this half-day, they can come and collect the bodies. On the other side, Wang Qi, Ning Rong, the head of Tianbao Pavilion, and Chu Shanhe also looked extremely weak. The opponent was obviously well prepared, and both their attack and coordination were flawless, which made their first teaming up feel extremely difficult. Soon, after a battle, the two sides reunited briefly and had a chance to catch their breath. "If this continues, I'm afraid I won't even see my son and will die here." Wang Qi laughed bitterly, his body covered with scars, and there was a shocking wound in his abdomen, with blood dripping out. As he spoke, he swallowed a pill. Chapter 356, Saint King, only fight to the death. The others were silent for a while, using this brief time to recover. They all knew that their contribution to this holy war was minimal, and even if they won or lost, it would not change anything. The real victory or defeat will be decided in the battle in the 9th heaven. If any saint could spare a hand at this moment and come to support them, it would be a dimensionality reduction attack for both sides. Thinking of this, Wang Qi and others glanced at the battle in heaven. Soon, they felt despair. Because of the battle in the sky, even though the intertwined figures could not be seen clearly, one could vaguely tell from their features that the blood god cult was almost crushing them. Who is that person, and why is he so powerful? Looking at the red-clothed figure at the peak of his career, Elder Xiong showed an expression of unwillingness and said through gritted teeth, Just a few confrontations revealed that the strong man in red was clearly making fun of those saints. But he was a saint, right? Is there anyone in this world more powerful than a saint? Saint King, Chu Shanhe said in a trembling voice. He recalled it. He remembered it all. That day in the most difficult place, he caught a glimpse of the upper realm. Among those powerful auras, there was clearly one that was the same as this one. Saint King, Wang Qi and others were stunned after hearing this. They had been taught from generation to generation that the highest realm in Tianyuan realm is only a saint, but now they are told that there are beings above saints. Chu Shanhe sighed and told everything he knew. That's right, it's the Saint King. After reaching sainthood, cultivators in the Tianyuan realm usually stop at the saint peak. That's because we are suppressed by the rules of our world and cannot cultivate to a higher realm. If you want to cultivate to a higher realm, there are two ways. One is to leave the Tianyuan realm and go to the upper realm to practice, and the other is to obtain rare treasures that can block the rules and thus break through. This Saint King on the other side is clearly from the upper realm. The gap between a Saint King and a saint is like an insurmountable chasm. We can't possibly defeat him. Even if we wait for others to come to support us, there's no hope of facing a Saint King. And the most likely force in our Tianyuan territory to have a Saint King is only that hidden family. But will that hidden family really come to take care of us? After he finished speaking, Chu Shanhe's face turned pale, and there was no trace of hope in his heart. So, no matter what, we will die today along with those geniuses. Ning Ronghua's face turned pale, and she spoke in a trembling voice. Chu Shanhe remained silent and nodded slightly. There was nothing he could do. I just hope those geniuses can come out later. If we can delay for a few hours, maybe they will be restricted in coming and choose to leave. However, the probability is extremely small. Since the vortex appeared from ancient times to the present, it has only been half an hour at the latest. Chu Shanhe shook his head and said in a deep voice, Alas, it seems, today we have no choice but to fight to the death. The old sect leader sighed, then clenched his hands, gritted his teeth, and said with red eyes, Even if I die, I must take those beasts with me. Yeah, since we're all going to die here, we might as well fight to our heart's content and kill a few blood god cult lackeys before we die. Wang Qi also had a cold look on his face. Soon, fighting broke out again. In the city of Chu, countless monks were in despair, not saying a word, staring at the battle in the void. No one expected that such an exciting day would be completely changed because of the arrival of the blood god cult. The area outside Chu City was blocked by the blood god cult with formations in advance. No one could go out, and no one could come out. Although the Luotian formation could temporarily protect them from the aftermath of the battle and the slaughter of the blood god cult's thugs, it was only temporary. Now, as the battle intensifies, more and more cracks in the Luotian formation spread like a spiderweb. The people trapped in Chu City are like birds in a cage, quietly waiting for their death. And the madly spreading cracks were like the death knell for them, closing in step by step. The sky and earth were stained with blood, and more blood plasma fell from the battlefield. They could all see that it was obviously the blood of those quasi-saints. After a short rest, no one knew what happened, but the quasi-saints in Chu City attacked as if they were risking their lives. Their fighting style of exchanging injuries for injuries also meant that they were destined to be covered in wounds, like bloody men, with their vitality gradually fading away. Some people even saw the old leader of the Qilin sect, his white hair dyed red, and the holy weapon in his hand was chopped to pieces until there was nothing left in his hand. He waved his empty fists and went up to fight with others. The blood was spurting out without regard for one's life. Mother, are they bad people? On the street, a little girl was eating candied haws and asked in a naive manner. No, they're good people. The woman holding the little girl wiped away her tears and pretended to be calm. Oh, then they're the bad guys. After the little girl reacted, she pointed at the blood god cult members, then waved her little hand and said in a baby voice, Bad guys, beat them to death. Mother, why are you crying? The woman remained silent. She didn't know how to answer her daughter. I believe that big brother in white will definitely come to rescue us. He is so powerful. After thinking for a while, the girl seemed to have thought of something. The corners of her mouth raised. She waved her fists, and her little face was full of confidence. The woman gave a bitter smile and just shook her head, without destroying her daughter's faith. This is a holy war, a battle between strong men. Even the one with double pupils who is almost invincible in the immortal collection. What can he do in this battle? At this moment, in the crowd, the young man wearing a pig head mask looked at the familiar figure in the blood-stained sky, his hands clenched. Zuatian Pavilion. It's really unlucky. I didn't expect to encounter something like this after finally going out into the wilderness. Lan Linchuan's face was gloomy, and he spoke unhappily with a hint of resentment in his tone. If the old man hadn't insisted on leading those tribesmen to clamor for change, how could they have come all the way to Chu City? Now, not only have they not seen the person, they're also trapped in this Chu City. But even though it was just angry words, he still felt a little sad when he came out this time. I didn't expect that there were so many strong men in the Central Plains, and they could still deal with one or two when facing such a powerful enemy. If it were someone from the wilderness, I'm afraid that even if the four major families joined forces, they would be destroyed in a few breaths. Lan Xin and Lan Jia behind him didn't dare to say a word. The old man, with a haggard face, was also silent. Seeing they didn't talk back, Lan Linchuan couldn't help but speak in a more relaxed tone. Given the current situation, it's hard to tell whether what we saw that day was true or not. Besides, if it was true, wouldn't that guy still be dead after he gets out? No matter how powerful he is, can he beat these people? In my opinion, we will die sooner or later if we stay here. Once this formation is broken, we will leave immediately. I will consider this result as my victory. Lan Mo remained silent, staring blankly at the sky with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. Could it be that the human race in the Central Plains has really declined? If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your agreement. We'll wait until the formation is broken and then set off immediately. Old man, even if you don't think about me, you should think about your grandchildren. They are our future and cannot be harmed. Lan Linchuan said earnestly. Once these words were spoken, even such a cold-blooded person would be moved. Lan Mo remained silent. Lan Xin looked at this scene, and her beautiful eyes were a little dim. She supported her grandfather's reforms. She knew in her heart that her father and brother were too stubborn. Is this how it's going to end? The Lan family really can't afford to lose. She looked up at the sky, praying for a miracle to happen. And at the table next door, what should I do? What should I do? If the young master and the others come back, what should I do? Qingyu changed from his usual calmness and kept pacing back and forth with an anxious look on his face. Qing Fan, think about it quickly. What can you do? Qing Fan was silent for a long time before he shook his head. Although I couldn't see the fight between the saints clearly, the sudden and desperate fight between the quasi-saints. If this happened during a battle, there could only be one possibility. They were desperate and decided to trade their lives. Usually, the key to a battle between powerful individuals like this lies in the power dynamics between even stronger individuals. Therefore, the quasi-saints made this decision after observing the saint situation. This also indicates that those saints are probably dying. In the sky, I'll give you one last chance. If you surrender to our blood god cult, we'll let you live. Otherwise, you'll die. The red-robed envoy stood with his hands folded, his eyes cold as he looked down at the four wounded men. Not far away, the four leaders of the blood god cult had already surrounded Li Songhai and his three companions, not leaving any chance for them to escape. All exits have been blocked. There's nothing else we can do. Qian looked around and gave a wry smile. The holy bow in his hand was almost broken into pieces after this high-intensity battle. Li Songhai coughed up a mouthful of blood and phlegm, slowly raised his head and sneered. Even if I am tortured to death by you, I will never surrender to you, let alone join your filthy blood god cult. Li Songhai's left arm was cut off, revealing the eerie white bones. On his remaining hand, the two sacred artifacts passed down from the Li family were dim, as if they would be shattered in the next second. The two people beside him were not in a much better condition. Zhao Lei's sword was broken in two, leaving only half of the hilt, and the compass in Chun Song's hand had already broken into several pieces. They remained silent and wanted to continue swallowing the pills, but found that the storage ring was already empty. At this moment, several people looked a little weak, and a sense of despair surged in their hearts. They had never imagined at first that the red-robed envoy would be so powerful. Just one person easily suppressed the four of them so that they could not raise their heads. Even Li Songhai's left arm was cut off by his sword during the battle. In addition, the four saints who were no less capable than them kept harassing them, and they had only just reached this point, their oil lamps running out, without any ability to resist. Oh, you're still being stubborn. The red-robed envoy sneered and walked forward slowly. When he raised his hand, the demonic power surged and turned into a huge black hand, which lifted Li Songhai up. Li Songhai kept struggling, his face flushed red. Under this huge force, he felt that every inch of flesh and blood in his body was about to be shattered. His consciousness became increasingly blurred, and his eyes gradually became cloudy. When Shi Yun and the others saw this, their pupils shrank, and they all tried to rescue him. But they were all intercepted by the saint of the blood god cult. With us here, you still want to interfere with the master emissary? You really don't know how to live or die. And Mo, you said in a cold voice, and with a palm strike, the fire from the abyss rose into the sky, blocking the three people firmly. This is the divine burial fire, a magical skill of the heavenly demon lineage that can burn the heavens and destroy the earth. Even a saint must be extremely cautious when facing this fire. If you are not careful and get tangled up in a trace of flame, it will cause piercing pain, devour your flesh and blood, turn everything into nothingness, and become difficult to extinguish. In front of the fire, Tianyuan, Zhao Lei, and Chun Song were sweating profusely. Their faces were pale, and they could only stare at the demon. On the other side, the red-robed envoy glanced at the sky and saw that there was still no figure in the vortex. He seemed to have thought of something, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. He glanced at the few people and revealed a playful smile. Since those geniuses haven't come out yet, let's play a game. Qi-yun and the other two trembled, and a bone-chilling chill rose from their spines. Although they didn't know what the powerful blood god cult leader was going to do, they all knew that the game he was talking about was definitely not a good thing. The four saints of the blood god cult looked at each other meaningfully, revealing a gloating smile. They knew very well the methods of the cult. They were so cruel that even executioners like them felt a chill in their hearts after seeing them. Looks like someone's going to be unlucky again. But no matter how funny they are, they will not let down their guard at this critical moment and give these three people any chance to escape. Otherwise, the three of them would be in trouble. Thinking of this, the eyes of Mou and others became colder, and their gazes were fixed on them. Let me look for it. The red-robed envoy sent a wisp of divine consciousness into the storage ring, and then closed his eyes. Li Tsanghai, who was in a monstrous devil's hand, had already fainted from the pain, and his body was constantly being squeezed and deformed. Soon, that heart-pounding voice sounded again. Oh, so I found it. The red-robed envoy waved his hand, and 4 black flags floated in the air. The expressions of Mou and others suddenly changed, and a hint of fear flashed in their eyes, as if the tiny flag was some evil ghost from the abyss. They had not expected that the envoy would actually take out this thing. On the other side, Qi-yun and the other two took a deep breath, their expressions becoming more solemn. Although no one knew what the red-robed envoy had taken out, it was clear from the expressions of the other 4 members of the blood god cult that it was definitely not a good thing, just as they were guessing. Chapter 357. The saint was captured. Li Tsanghai fell, and a genius was born. You will know what this thing is in a moment. The red-robed emissary laughed meaningfully, then looked at the 3 of them, his tone undeniable, and said coldly, "Now if you don't want to die, tie them up." As soon as he finished speaking, the terrifying demonic aura once again enveloped the entire sky, like a dark cloud covering the sky. Countless devilish hands reached down from the dark clouds, covering the sky and the sun, bringing people a great sense of oppression. The pupils of Qi-yun and the other 2 shrank, as they felt the fear of death surge in their hearts, as if the other party could turn the 3 of them into a bloody mist in a single thought. At the same time, the 4 flags also rose into the air and transformed into torture instruments emitting demonic energy. They saw clearly that it was the soul-devouring banner covered with black thorns. The next moment, a painful wail was heard. Li Tsanghai was awakened by the red-robed envoy and then forcibly tied to the soul-devouring banner. Suddenly, the thorns on it pierced Li Tsanghai's back, leaving bloody holes one after another, piercing into his flesh. Even at his wounds, black flowers began to bloom. How about it? Beautiful, isn't it? This is my masterpiece, the floral language of death. The red-robed envoy had an intoxicated look on his face, his eyes full of admiration, and the corners of his mouth occasionally raised, as if he was looking at his own masterpiece. Such a perverted posture made everyone present shudder. Soon, he turned around, his eyes calm, and said to Qi-yun and the other 2, "You 3, come up if you don't want to die now." As soon as he finished speaking, the sea of demons in the sky surged again, and countless giant hands waited for an opportunity to move, firmly locking the breath of Qi-yun and the other 2. It only takes a thought to end the lives of the 3 of them. On the other side, Li Tsanghai seemed to realize that it was because of him that 3 people were implicated. He looked up with his dying breath. Hurry up." Little did he know that it was the poison of the thorns that caused him to have hallucinations. Qi-yun and the other 2 remained silent, quietly facing the murderous intent in the air. It seems that the only option now is to be restrained by the soul-devouring banner, Zhao Lei said with a bitter look on his face. If we delay a little longer, maybe we can still wait for rescue. As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead in accepting the soul-devouring banner. With a swish, the sharp thorns pierced through his flesh and clothes, and blood immediately flowed out. Zhao Lei gritted his teeth, and even though the pain filled his consciousness, he didn't make a sound. Qi-yun and Chun Song were also bound by the soul-devouring banner one after another, and blood gushed out. In an instant, The pain intensified, and they clenched their teeth tightly, without saying a word. They only felt that they had no strength in their bodies. Their cultivation was blocked, and their movements were restricted. They were like disabled people, tied to this soul-devouring banner. The only thing he could feel was his vitality fading away, his cultivation and his essence being slowly devoured by the flower of death that was rooted in his flesh and blood. At this moment, there is no more saint in Chu City. The dead end is here. The red-robed envoy laughed loudly. Seeing that the human saint who had attacked him before was now almost like a useless person and was under his control, he felt an indescribable sense of ease. The 4 blood god cult members beside him also had their eyelids twitching, with fear deep in their eyes. Soon, the demon came forward, knelt on one knee, and said with a smile, "Congratulations, sir, on successfully completing your mission today. If headquarters learns of this, they will definitely promote you." The red cultist was a little confused. "Isn't it over yet?" Mou raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Now that the top forces of the human race have been completely wiped out, when those geniuses return, who can stop us?" "That's right. You made a contribution this time. I'll give you a mention when I return to headquarters." The red-robed envoy stood with his hands behind his back, nodded slightly, and smiled. "Thank you, sir." After he finished speaking, Mou showed a look of gratitude. Isn't this what he wanted? After seeing this, the other 3 people also felt a little regretful. Why didn't they think of it in advance? Since this is over, let's announce it to the world. It's just the right time to dampen the morale of the human race. The red-robed envoy seemed to have thought of something and tapped his fingers. The next moment, the dark clouds in the sky dissipated, and the tragic situation of Li Songhai and the other 3 was exposed to the world without any cover. The other side, seeing that 2 quasi-saints of the Blood God sect were preparing to launch a sneak attack on the old sect leader. Elder Xiong roared, clenched his fists into tiger fists, and thrust out his fists, sending the 2 quasi-saints rushing towards him flying hundreds of meters. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his knuckles turning pale, and looked at the old master. "Are you okay?" "Good." The old sect leader was panting, and the Qilin pattern on his face had long since dimmed and lost its luster, obviously having exhausted all his spiritual energy. Not far away, Chu Shanhe and his companions also burned all their energy to completely dissolve the opponent's killing techniques. For a moment, the 2 sides were in a brief stalemate. Opposite them, a hint of fear flashed in the eyes of several people from the Blood God cult, and they stared at them intently. Logically speaking, the 8 of them had a numerical advantage against the 7 opponents. But who would have thought that it was the opponent's desperate fighting style that kept them from finding any opportunities? Even the opponent's cooperation became more and more skillful with each fight, and they were about to catch up with them. It doesn't matter. They can't sustain a prolonged battle with this kind of fighting style. Once their energy is exhausted, they'll be trapped. One of the quasi-saints of the Blood God cult said in a cold voice. The others nodded in succession. On the other side, Elder Xiong also realized that he could not delay any longer, so he sent a message to several people and prepared for a surprise attack. "No need to take action, just look up." And at this moment, a desperate and powerless voice sounded. The old sect leader stared blankly at the sky, his eyes filled with paleness. Everyone followed his gaze, and their pupils suddenly shrank. The haze in the higher sky had dissipated at some point, and the view was bright. A few red-robed envoys were high above, looking down at them coldly. What was most shocking was the 4 figures in front of them who were imprisoned by the soul-devouring banner. Isn't that their saint? Actually all lost? They stared with their eyes wide open, unable to believe that those bloody figures were the saints they had previously placed high hopes on. The Li family's ancestor, the Heavenly Sword Saint, the Heavenly Formation ancestor, and even the protector of the man with double pupils were all detained by the other party. And in the city of Chu further down, the monks in the streets and alleys were in deathly silence. They thought that when the dark clouds dispersed, it would be the time for the strong to return in triumph. But they did not expect to see such a scene. The red-robed envoy was very satisfied with their reaction. A hint of cruelty flashed in his eyes, and then he beckoned his hand, and the 4 soul-devouring banners moved forward a few steps. This action will enable the world to see the figure above more clearly. Brute! After seeing the miserable state of the 4 saints, even the old sect leader who cultivated himself could not help but swear. He had never imagined that someone could be so cruel, use the soul-devouring banner, used to torture evil spirits on humans. At this moment, in the void, Li Songhai and the other 3 lowered their heads, expressionless. Their bodies were pierced by thorns and dripping with blood. On the shocking wounds, flowers of death like human heads bloomed. Li Songhai, who was the most seriously injured, had countless vines growing on his broken arm, frantically sucking blood and flesh to grow. They were not dead, but it was better than death. They had long been numbed by the pain, so there was not a trace of emotion on their faces. This scene is so depressing and suffocating that it makes people feel cold in their hearts. Ancestor. In the Zhuotian pavilion, Zhu Ying's mind was blank and her beautiful eyes were dazed. If that figure wasn't too familiar, she wouldn't have believed it was the old ancestor who was smiling at her yesterday. And on the other side, Qing Fan and Qing Yu also stood up suddenly and looked at Qi Yun with disbelief in their eyes. He is the protector of the young master. Her rosy lips were slightly parted, her pretty face full of horror. They had never imagined that someone would dare to be so cruel to the young master's protector. The four people from the Wuling tribe standing aside were also silent at this moment. After all, they're all human beings. No one would feel good to see their strong men being tortured like this. Far away in the Chu family's ancestral land, Fan Dao watched this scene. His pupils shrank slightly, and a chill ran down his spine. The blood god cult is so powerful that 4 saints were captured alive. He was somewhat relieved that he did not refuse the other party's request for cooperation at the beginning. Otherwise, it would be hard to imagine whether he would end up like Li Songhai and the others. It seems that even if that kid comes out today, he will definitely die. I don't believe he can still be allowed to live. Fan Dao breathed a sigh of relief and murmured to himself. The worry in his eyes finally dissipated. He had personally witnessed Nangong Chen's rise and knew how terrifying his growth rate was. These days, he often woke up from his sleep, dreaming of being killed by him. But fortunately, all this is finally coming to an end. We shouldn't stay here for long. The most urgent thing is to wake up the Son of God in the Divine Palace. Soon, Fan Dao shook his head and disappeared on the spot. In the void, the red-robed envoy snorted coldly and said, "Do you lowly ants see clearly? This is the fate of offending our blood god cult. Even a saint is nothing more than a larger ant in front of our blood god cult." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone clenched their fists, their faces turned red, and they dared not speak out in anger. Seeing them like this, the red-robed envoy's eyes showed a hint of joy, and he continued, "Later, I will let you witness with your own eyes how we kill all your geniuses. As for now, let me show you how we humiliate your saint." After saying this, Elder Xiong, who was below, clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, saying, "You will be punished." If his energy and blood had not been exhausted long ago, he would have rushed forward to bite off a piece of meat, even if he died. Retribution? What retribution? In this world, not to mention your 10 regions, even in the 3,000 Dao states, who dares to retaliate against our blood god cult? The red-robed envoy laughed, as if mocking the other party's ignorance. After a while, he glanced at them cruelly. "Don't worry, after I kill them all, you will die too. Don't worry, no one will be left behind. Let's all go down and reunite." "You!" Elder Xiong was furious and was about to say something when the 8 quasi-saints of the blood god sect had already approached and surrounded them. Even Mou and the others were staring at them coldly. It looked like if he said one more word, he would be the next to die. Seeing this, Elder Xiong could only curse softly. What a scoundrel! The red-robed envoy retracted his gaze and fixed his eyes on Li Songhai. He stretched out his withered palm, and a small knife covered with demonic energy fell into his hand. "Are you still stubborn now?" he said with a smile. Who would have thought that Li Songhai, who had been lowering his eyes, suddenly raised his head, spat out a mouthful of bloody phlegm, and revealed a pair of bloodshot teeth. "Do you really think that if you capture me, I will obey you? Stop dreaming, blood god cult kid. In my eyes, you're nothing but a beast in human form." After he finished speaking, Li Songhai coughed violently several times and looked increasingly weak. It was obvious that the action just now had exhausted all his strength. The red cult envoy's face froze. He touched the sticky substance on his face and felt a sense of nausea. "Vomit!" he retched. His face looked extremely ugly. His eyes were cold and filled with terrifying murderous intent. "You don't want my face? Then go die." The next moment, the knife pierced Li Songhai's heart. Li Songhai's eyes widened. His face turned extremely pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood plasma, his life force gradually fading away. Zhao Lei and the other 2 came to their senses, looked at the red-robed envoy, and shouted angrily, "Stop!" The red-robed envoy showed a ferocious smile, ignored them, and secretly increased the strength of his hands to fiddle with it. Not long after, Li Songhai lost his breath, and his eyes became dim and lifeless. At this moment, the whole audience was silent. No one expected that in full view of the public, the other party actually killed a saint who was the ancestor of the Leaf family. "You'll regret this." Qian took a deep breath and looked at him calmly, as if he had already seen the other person's death. The red-robed cult envoy laughed and said, "Who in this world can stop me? Who can kill me?" Just as he was about to attack Qian, the vortex in the void suddenly burst into a rosy glow, and more than a dozen figures gathered together. It was the immortal genius that everyone had been waiting for a long time. Don't want. Below, the monks' pupils suddenly shrank when they saw this. Now the people of the blood god cult have already controlled the powerful human beings. If these geniuses come back, aren't they walking into a trap? They don't want to see these innocent faces die at the hands of those beasts. It's over. Everything is over. Shushana's face was ashen as death as he murmured. It was all his fault. If he hadn't taken good care of the seven-star formation and not asked Shu Ruchuan to look after it, how could it have been destroyed by outsiders? Today, the tragic deaths of geniuses and the extinction of saints are mostly due to them. Oh, you're finally here. You've kept us waiting for so long. The red-robed envoy sneered, stopped what he was doing, glanced sideways, his eyes extremely cold. Chapter 358. Nangong Chen was furious. You're only half a step away from becoming a quasi-saint. You deserve to die. Qian raised his head with difficulty. When he saw Nangong Chen, his pupils trembled, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go." His life was saved by Tianyuan mansion, so he could naturally sacrifice it here, but it was different for Nangong Chen. He was the hope of the entire divine dynasty, and even the lifeblood of Tianyuan mansion. It can be said that no matter who dies today, the other cannot die. Zhao Lei and Chen Song also looked over, their throats moving as if they wanted to say something, but then they fell silent, with regretful expressions on their faces. What a pity, such a talented and monstrous genius will die with them today. But there was no way out. With a Saint King here, who could stop him? Now we can only hope that the trump cards in the hands of those geniuses can allow them to escape. After all, they're all from major sects, and at least they have something to save their lives. On the other side, Li Qixin and others, who were originally extremely excited, were stunned and fell into dead silence after seeing the scene in front of them. Li Qixin and Li Muxiu widened their eyes, looking at the extremely familiar figure on the soul-devouring banner, their minds going blank. Is that the ancestor? They could never have imagined that when they met Li Songhai, who had grown up with them, they would encounter such a cruel scene. Ancestor. After several confirmations, Li Qixin's breathing became rapid and his whole body was trembling. He couldn't believe that the corpse that looked like a monster was really his ancestor. The pillar of the Li family, the old man who was revered by countless clansmen, is dead. His face was unrecognizable. His flesh and blood were all over his body, and he was pierced by thorns. There was even a shocking wound on his chest. It was hard to imagine how he was treated before he died. At this moment, Li Qixin and Li Muxiu both stood there with dull eyes. Jiang Che, Wang Tung, Chu Yin, and others standing by also looked pale. No one had expected that the scene that would greet them would be like this. For a moment, they clenched their fists and their eyes were cold. Go! Below, the monks shouted loudly, their faces full of anxiety. Lu Dazhu and the others swallowed their saliva. No matter how stupid they were, they could see the situation in front of them. They were intercepted and killed by the blood god cult. Even the strong men from various families were unable to stop them, and the four saints were captured by the other side. Even the ancestor of the Li family, a famous saint, was killed by the other side. On the contrary, the opponent was not even hurt at all, and the red-clothed man in the lead didn't even have a speck of dust on his robe. This was enough to show how terrifying the opponent's strength was. Thinking of this, no matter how angry they were, they became quiet as if they had been poured with cold water. Surprised? Everyone, this is the gift we, the blood god cult, have prepared for you. The red-robed envoy had a look of enjoyment on his face, with his hands open, enjoying the taste. To be honest, he really enjoyed the feeling that these geniuses wanted to kill him, but couldn't do anything to him, which made him feel extremely refreshed. As soon as he finished speaking, a blazing sword intent that was powerful enough to tear apart heaven and earth gathered from the sky. In the void, a golden avenue spread out, and a young man in snow-white clothes appeared, walking slowly towards them with the human emperor's sword in his hand. Nangong Chen's eyes were cold, and the 8 immortal medicines exploded in his body in an instant. The medicinal power surged to his muscles and bones, breaking the shackles. Mid-stage God King, late stage of God King, the peak of the God King, half-step to quasi-saint. In just a moment, under the power of the medicine, Nangong Chen had already reached the level of a half-step quasi-saint. Astonishing beams of light burst out from his double pupils, and runes entwined as they opened and closed, like 9 suns suppressing the heavens. In front of this shocking gaze, the void collapsed, and the earth trembled. Under the silver boots, endless chaotic energy enveloped the sky, emitting a ray of emerald green divine light. Then a green lotus tore through the gray sky and rose from the ground. The blooming vitality was enough to flatten the mountains and rivers. Nangong Chen stood on the lotus platform, his snow-white clothes fluttering like a banished immortal. He slowly raised the human emperor sword in his hand and pointed it forward. The tip of the sword was filled with imperial dragon energy, transforming into a 9-clawed golden dragon, which looked down at them coldly like a young boy. Everyone in the blood god cult stared at this scene in amazement. "Those who harm our divine dynasty, you deserve to die," the young man said calmly, protecting Tianyuan and the other two behind him, but his tone was filled with extreme anger. At this moment, everything was silent. Only that cold voice echoed in the world, resounding in the ears of everyone present. As soon as he finished speaking, Nangong Chen slashed out with his sword. Suddenly, the dragon energy of the emperor swept across the 9 heavens and turned into a dazzling sword light. As the sword energy rippled, it turned into 9-clawed golden dragons that tore through the void and roared out. The monks below were stunned. It was hard to believe that at this critical moment, there was actually a genius who stepped forward and fought against the blood god sect alone. And that person was none other than the one with double pupils who was so dazzling in the Immortal Collection before. In Zhuaxian Pavilion, Zhu Ying hugged her knees and sobbed, tears falling uncontrollably when she suddenly felt a brilliant light flash past her. She suddenly raised her head, revealing her beautiful eyes that had already turned red. In an instant, her red lips opened slightly, and her pupils were filled with the shadow of the dazzling sword. In Chucheng, among the crowd, the little girl who had been held by the woman earlier was now dancing with joy, very excited. "Mother, look, Brother White is really here to beat up the bad guys. Yes, he is coming. He is coming to save us." The woman nodded heavily, hugged the girl, tears in her eyes. The other side, young master, has stood up again. "Oh my God." Qing Fan's tone was filled with shock as he stared at the sky. Meanwhile, Qing Yu's beautiful eyes were filled with worry. The other side's red-robed envoy is not simple. "Young master, please don't let him get hurt." After all, they remembered clearly how powerful the red-robed envoy was. Even someone as powerful as the ancestor of the Li family was killed by him. Next door, Meng Huang and his group were even more shocked. "Is this boy the Central Plains prodigy we saw that day?" Lan Linchuan widened his eyes, his tone full of disbelief. The aura of that sword seemed to be able to kill him. "This guy is actually a genius? It seems to be him." Lan Jia on the side swallowed her saliva, her eyes full of admiration. Being able to swing a sword at a being above a saint, no matter how strong the opponent is, in his heart, he is already a real man. He was also ashamed of what he had said before. "He's stronger than I thought." Lan Mo was knowledgeable and experienced, so he naturally knew the extraordinary nature of this sword. After a moment of silence, he spoke with deep admiration in his tone. Lan Xion's beautiful eyes shone with brilliance. This was the strongest genius she had ever seen, bar none. Even her brother was not as strong as him. He seemed to be even more powerful than her father. But soon, Lan Linchuan shook his head and said regretfully, "What a pity. If he had such strength, he could have forced his way out of here. It's just that his impulsiveness ruined him." Obviously, he was not optimistic that Nangong Chen could escape alive after the sword attack. Facing the young man's ultimate sword attack, the red-robed envoy's expression was no longer as calm as at the beginning, and a hint of fear flashed in the depths of his eyes. "This sword actually makes me feel a little threatened. Is this the monster that the headquarters asked me to get rid of? He is indeed extraordinary. Not to mention, this boy seems to have just broken through to the half-step quasi-saint level. Previously, he was a little confused as to why the headquarters went to so much trouble to send himself, a dignified Saint King, to preside over this hunting plan. Now he can understand. That's right, if it were someone else, they would have really failed. But unfortunately, the one who came this time is me, the white-boned Saint King Wei Yin. You are doomed to fail." Thinking of this, Wei Yin put on a red robe. His eyes flashed with coldness, and when he raised his hand, the flesh and blood on his body suddenly disappeared, and his whole body turned into a red skeleton, which was extremely creepy. But what was strange was that there was a cold green light flashing in those empty eyes. "Everyone, get behind me," Wei Yin scolded. Seeing the envoy reveal his true form, Mou and others had to take the boy's strength seriously. A hint of surprise flashed in their eyes, and then they quickly disappeared from the spot and hid behind Wei Yin. The next moment, Wei Yin clenched his palms, and endless sharp bones flew out from his body, condensing in the void and turning into a bone shield like a compass. However, this was not the end. The bone shield seemed to be alive and grew on its own. The shrill wails of the dead continued to be heard, and bones kept bursting out from Wei Yin's body. Each bone is different and carries great resentment. Obviously, these are the bones of creatures who died at the hands of each other, until the bone shield grew thousands of feet long, like a big sun, blocking out the light of the sky, bringing people a great sense of oppression. However, all this was accomplished in just a moment. These are the 10,000 bone shields, made from the hardest bones of all living things. I don't believe you can destroy them. Wei Yin sneered. Their white bone clan was the best at defense. This kid could be said to have bumped into the muzzle of his gun. Not to mention this kid, even if he himself used all his strength, it would be difficult to tear the thorn shield apart. For a moment, his eyes were full of confidence as he watched the bright sword light coming towards him. However, the next moment, he saw the most incredible scene in his life. Laugh. The sound of bones being torn and broken was heard. The sword light only touched a small part of the bone shield and went straight through. The sword power remained undiminished and was still as shocking as before, rushing towards the people behind Wei Yin. In an instant, shrill screams rang out, and sword light illuminated the entire sky. It was not until the light gradually faded that everyone could gradually see the situation in the sky clearly. This Elder Xiong widened his eyes, his face filled with shock. With this strike of the sword, the number of people in the Blood God cult was reduced by more than half. At this moment, in the void behind Wei Yin, there were only 3 quasi-saints and 2 saints who were still in shock. Mou gasped for breath, his eyes filled with fear. He never imagined that one day he, a peak saint, would actually feel the breath of death from a genius, and so close. He saw with his own eyes that the 2 colleagues beside him were killed by the sword light and turned into a bloody mist. They didn't even have a chance to resist. If he had not reacted in time, he would have been annihilated in this sword light. The other 3 quasi-saints also had pale faces and dull eyes, and they had not yet recovered from the sword attack. When they saw the figure in the snow-covered clothes, they couldn't stop trembling. It is conceivable how much psychological trauma Nangong Chen's full-strength sword strike caused them. "You little bastard, you deserve to die." After a brief silence, an extremely shrill voice broke the atmosphere. Everyone looked up and saw that Wei Yin, who had been calm before, was now like a madman, with eyes full of anger, staring at Nangong Chen. He never imagined that this beast was so insidious. His target from the beginning to the end had always been the people behind him, not himself. And all the hype just now was also to confuse him and make him focus on himself. Who would have thought that the other party would do such a thing? Now that so many people have died, there is no way he can be promoted. If he still hasn't brought this kid's head back to the headquarters, then he can no longer work in the Blood God cult. Thinking of this, he became furious, clenched his hands, and wished he could cut the boy into pieces. However, even though he was angry to this extent, he did not rush to take action. Instead, he fixed his eyes on Nangong Chen, wanting to see if he had any other means. If the opponent attacks him with such a sword again and he fails to guard against it, he will have nowhere to cry. He would never make the same mistake again. Their Blood God cult really couldn't afford to lose anyone for such a simple mission. On the other side, Nangong Chen breathed a sigh of relief, feeling the strength in his body gradually disappearing. A hint of paleness flashed across his handsome face, but it was well hidden. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. He had not expected that the sword he had bought with the 8 immortal herbs could only kill 2 saints and 5 quasi-saints. Fortunately, his goal was achieved. At least he scared the red-robed envoy. The reason why he didn't attack the red dress sect before was, firstly, because he didn't know the other party's strength, and secondly, because killing other people might be more effective. So he pretended to attack the man in red, but his real target was always the people behind him. Fortunately, the bet was right in the end. At this moment, his oil lamp has run out and he is no longer able to fight. What he needs to do now is to delay the opponent so that he can have a chance of survival. Thinking of this, he glanced at the alert skull, shook his head, and said with regret, "I chopped it off the right side. I'm sorry I couldn't chop off your old dog's head." To outsiders, Nangong Chen was still shrouded in immortal aura, his brows glowing, his blood and energy like a dragon. Even after swinging this sword, his condition was even better than before. The human emperor sword in his hand was also shining brightly, and the sword body was wrapped with the imperial dragon energy, and it was extremely sharp. Behind him, the green lotus was in full bloom, and it seemed as if an endless stream of vitality was being released and transmitted into Nangong Chen's body. Chapter 359. One sword to suppress the scoundrels. Everyone is amazed. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present gradually came back to their senses from the sword, their faces filled with disbelief. The one with double pupils was like a sword, killing most of the Blood God cult members with one blow. Oh my god, I must be dreaming. Is this the enchanting power of a 9-star qualification? Half a step to quasi-saint. Yet he can leap forward and fight against beings above saint. Soon, someone reacted and looked happy. Then in that case, we are saved today. Yes, we are saved, thanks to the person with double pupils. If he hadn't appeared at this critical moment, I'm afraid that what awaits us today would be death. After this strike, the pupil man seemed to have lost his breath. Hiss! Has he become as powerful as a saint? He truly lives up to his name. For a moment, people in the streets and alleys of Chu City all showed admiration on their faces, and after seeing Nangong Chen in such a state, they were even relieved. They all knew that the man with double pupils never did anything without confidence. Now that the other party dared to directly mock the strong man in red, it meant that the man with double pupils had absolute confidence in defeating the other party. Thinking of this, the praises became even more continuous. Those monks from other places who came here, because of its reputation, were also saying that it was very exciting and were extremely glad that they made this decision. If you don't come, you will never see such a fierce scene in your life. A genius fighting against a saint, and even mocking the existence above the saint. This is even more frightening than what they saw in the projection, and it directly refreshed their worldview. They all suspected that the person with double pupils was deliberately pretending to be weak in the immortal treasure. In Zuaxian Pavilion, Zhu Ying widened her beautiful eyes and pursed her red lips, as if her ancestor had been saved. That person with double pupils is too strong. Is he really not the reincarnation of some powerful person? In the restaurant, the 4 people from Monghuang were also silent at this moment. I was short-sighted. This boy's strength is even stronger than I imagined. Lan Linchuan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, his tone full of shock. He hadn't expected that there was such a monster in the Central Plains, who could actually become a half-step quasi-holy war saint and kill so many powerful men with just one sword. I originally thought that it was an illusion that the opponent's sword could kill me, but now it seems that it was not an illusion. The opponent could really kill me with one sword. He didn't dare to think about it. If other families found this kind of monster to participate in the wilderness competition, how would their Wuling clan win? Now he understood what his father had done before, and a bitter smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It turns out that I am the one who has been a frog in the well. Before leaving the wilderness, I thought I was the bright moon in the sky. After leaving the wilderness, I realized that I was just a tiny speck of dust. Actually, I didn't expect him to be so strong. Lan Mo shook his head, took a sip of hot tea, and there was also surprise in his eyes. Grandpa, is he really of the same generation as us? Lan Jia, who was standing aside, felt a little heartbroken at the moment and couldn't help but ask. Lan Xin also looked over, with a hint of curiosity in her beautiful eyes. After all, this was the first time she had seen such an outrageous person of the same generation. They were at such a low level of cultivation, yet they could kill a saint. The gap was too big. Even if he had been practicing since the womb, it wouldn't be this outrageous. How could he have such a fast cultivation speed? Lan Mo took out a document he had bought on the road and handed it to the two of them. He shook his head, as if he wanted to say something. After hesitating for a long time, he uttered 3 words. See for yourself. The 2 siblings looked through it quickly, as if it were a treasure. The document clearly recorded the appearance of the person with double pupils and his real name. Nangong Chen, bone age 18. After seeing this line of small words, their minds went blank. That person who could kill a saint with just one sword now told them that he was only 18? Then all their years of cultivation have been wasted on the dog. In the void, Elder Xiong, the old sect leader, and other quasi-saints were stunned, looking at the snow-clad figure with disbelief in their eyes. Heroes truly emerge from youth. Elder Xiong sighed deeply and still couldn't believe that the boy was growing so fast. You know, the last time they met, the other party was just a great master, but now he is already half a step away from becoming a quasi-saint, almost catching up with him, and it has only been a few months. Even the opponent's strength can be compared with that of a saint. The head of Tianyuan Pavilion laughed heartily. I knew my son had a unique eye for people. Chu Shanhao was silent for a while, staring blankly, not knowing what to say, his expression very complicated. He never thought that one day he would be saved by a younger generation. And this junior was the one he had previously risked his life to prevent Chu Yin from having any contact with. All of a sudden, many white hairs grew among his black hair, and he looked much older. Yes, the future is destined to be his. The old sect leader also agreed. He knew that this child did not look like an impetuous person, and his character and talent were both excellent. He was destined to reach a point in the future that they could not imagine. But soon, a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. But it's a pity that Oli died just like that. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere suddenly became a little depressing. As for the Xinzong Tianjiao, after seeing Nangong Chen kill so many powerful enemies of the Blood God sect, their pupils also shocked, and they stood there in a daze for a long time. It seems like we were saved by Brother Nangong again. Xiongda held it in for a long time and couldn't help but speak. This sword is too powerful. Could it be that Brother Nangong was just playing house with us in Xinzong before, and didn't reveal his true strength? Lu Dazhu guessed in panic. This is too scary. Among their generation, there are people who can already fight against saints, and they're still thinking about how to break through to become a god king. And in the sky, as the boy finished speaking with a hint of regret, Wei Yin's face suddenly became stiff and extremely pale. What do you mean by, I'm sorry if it split crooked? It turns out that you wanted to chop me, but you happened to hit me wrongly. So you killed those 5 quasi-saints and 2 saints? Why the hell don't you kill me too? He naturally heard the sarcasm in the boy's tone, and immediately took a deep breath, his eyes cold, and a murderous intent that surged in his eyes made him wish he could tear Nangong Chen into pieces. Are you trying to provoke me into action? Wei Yin's expression returned to calm, and he spoke in a cold voice. The more critical the situation is, the more cautious he should be and not fall into that kid's trap. Nangong Chen shook his head. Provoke you? I'm just telling you the truth. Besides, I'm only a half-step quasi-saint. You're a powerful member of the blood god cult. It wouldn't be difficult for you to kill me. Why should I provoke you? Or are you scared? Nangong Chen smiled, his eyes looking down with disdain, the human emperor's sword in his hand emitting a cold light. After saying that, he no longer paid attention to the other party, turned around and looked at Tianyuan and the other 3, his eyes flashing as he wondered how to remove the restraint of the other party's soul-devouring banner. On the other side, Wei Yin gritted his teeth and looked at him coldly, but did not dare to attack directly. He was really guessed by the other party. He was really scared. No, to be more specific, he was afraid whether this boy could still use that shocking sword. Uncle Chi, 2 seniors, I'm sorry I'm late. Nangong Chen said in a deep voice, looking at the shocking injuries on the 3 people and seeing Li Songhai's corpse. A cold flash flashed in the depths of his eyes. He had never wanted to kill someone so much before. He knew that these powerful men could have left on their own, but when faced with so many powerful blood god cult members, they still went forward without hesitation to fight for the sake of these returning geniuses, causing such great damage. He was even tortured to this extent by the blood god cult with the soul-devouring banner and was beheaded by the other party in public, but he was still wholeheartedly for them. All the returning geniuses will never forget this kindness. Young master, you. Qi-Yun endured the severe pain and looked at Nangong Chen in horror. Obviously, the scene just now really scared him. He never imagined that his young master had just gone to the immortal treasury and came out with such terrifying strength, able to resist the blood god cult alone and kill so many powerful men of the other side in front of the red-robed envoy. Zhao Lei, who was standing by, also coughed and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He smiled palely and said, I've already seen your prowess in the projection, but I didn't expect you to give me such a big surprise after you came out. As for Chun Song, he was in an extremely bad condition and was about to faint. He gritted his teeth and held on. Not saying a word, his eyes also filled with shock. Let's talk about the politeness later. The most urgent matter is to remove the soul-devouring banners of the 3 seniors. Nangong Chen frowned and spoke softly. On the other side, Wei Yin, who had been frightened by Nangong Chen, gradually recovered. Looking at the young man's frown, he laughed and said, Ha ha, you're not trying to save them, are you? It's useless. There's no need to struggle. I might as well tell you directly that this soul-devouring banner has been improved by me. Even I don't know how to remove the restraints. Besides, the poison is already spread throughout their bodies, and the thorns have taken root in their flesh. If you want to force it, you can try, and see if you'll end up with a bloody corpse. Wei Yin's eyes were filled with joy. He had finally regained some of his dignity. By the way, if you give up your cultivation and kneel down to beg me for mercy, I might even teach you how to prolong their lives. As for how to unlock the soul-devouring banner, you don't even have to think about it. He seemed to have thought of something, raised his eyebrows, and said jokingly. The words fell. Nangong Chen ignored her, his expression expressionless, and continued to try everything on his own. He had to save Uncle Chi no matter what. Otherwise, he would be uneasy. The other side, everyone looked at Wei Yin's arrogant face, clenched their hands, and wished they could seal his mouth. It's really like a dog's mouth can't spit out ivory. He even lets the person with double pupils destroy his own cultivation. Why doesn't he just die? Unfortunately, they were powerless but had the will to do so, and could only watch the other side act so rampantly. But soon, everyone shifted their attention to the 3 dying figures, their eyes filled with worry. If what the other party said is true, this soul-devouring banner is almost unbreakable. Then what should they do? Is their Tianyuan realm going to lose 4 saints today? Moreover, although the one with double pupils had just displayed an extremely powerful sword attack, he did not continue to fight with the opponent afterwards, which proved that he did not have enough confidence to kill the opponent. If time drags on and they don't receive any support, but these saints die first, it will be extremely disadvantageous for them. In the city of Chu, the cultivators in the streets and alleys showed expressions of pity and spoke up one after another. What should we do now? We can't dismantle this soul-devouring banner, and we can't force it either. Are we just going to watch those 3 saints die before our eyes? Yes, but as ordinary cultivators, how can we save such a powerful person? We can only hope that those with double pupils have a plan. You know, that senior from the Heavenly Array Holy Land set up a formation for us to protect us from the aftermath of the battle. Otherwise, just a hint of their fighting spirit would have killed us countless times. That's right, we really don't want them to die. These are the heroes who protected us. They also didn't want those saints to die. They knew that they were able to survive until now without any injuries, all thanks to the blood and flesh of those powerful people. At this moment, the atmosphere in the entire Chu city was extremely depressing. In the Zoatian pavilion, the young girl whose eyes were red and swollen from crying couldn't help sobbing again when she heard that her ancestor was going to die in the end. Why in the end my ancestor still has to die? After she entered the Holy Land at a young age, she had no one to rely on except the ancestor, who raised her with great care from childhood to adulthood. She had no parents, but Chen Song was better than her biological parents to her. So, she really didn't want to see herself die, but she was powerless and could only watch. Sister, do you think the young master has a solution? In the restaurant on the other side, Qing Fan whispered. He will have it. Qing Yu's tone was also somewhat uncertain. After all, what the Blood God cult member said was so serious. No one could easily guarantee that they had the means to dismantle the soul-devouring banner. Of course, the pressure on the young master at this moment must be greater than anyone else. Qing Fan shook his head, and after a long while, he spoke. If you can truly save these 3 saints today and force the Blood God cult to retreat, your feat will surely be remembered for eternity. And in the void, Elder Xiong and the others remained silent. If they could have found a way to help, they would not have put all the burden on Nangong Chen.